Podmortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers, free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their multi-award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings, both in person and via Zoom, that were graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we're looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Salutations! Welcome to Pod Mortem. I'm Travis Hunter-Sayapin, joined as always by my co-hosts, my sister and my brother-in-law.
Hi, I'm Reneé Hunter-Vasquez.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
This week, we're broadcasting live from Lighthouse Point, discussing the 2003 supernatural horror film, Darkness Falls. This film was directed by Jonathan Liebesman from a screenplay by John Fasano, James Vanderbilt, and Joe Harris, based upon the short film The Tooth Fairy by Harris. In an admirable effort, Darkness Falls offers a sinister reimagining of familiar folklore, utilizing genre conventions to craft its twisted tale. Despite a decent enough cast, commendable camera work and lighting, and creepy creature design, the film would face creative disagreements which would result in compromising its original vision. Darkness Falls would still go on to become a financial success, and while it was panned by the vast majority of critics, it still remains a memorable slice of early 2000s horror. This film was suggested to us by friends of the show, Noreen S., Iana H., Tanner Rutgers, Scott Troutman-Wise, Lisa Misfit, Topher Williams, Destiny Faulkner, Cassandra, Blaine Hancock, and Cookie. We'd like to thank each and every one of them for their continued support of the show, as well as this suggestion. So, Darkness Falls. What were your first impressions on the film?
When this movie came out, I was 19. I don't think I seen it in the theater. I do remember seeing the trailer for it.
Mm-hmm.
I did watch this on DVD, and I seen it a few times. I'm going to be 100% honest. I remember really, really liking this movie. Not saying that I don't, but I remember something totally different. Watching it now for the show as a bigger, older adult, it's fun. It's still, the love is still there. It's kind of like the old pair of socks. They still got a hole in it, but you're still going to wear them. Even if they're there, it's like, I know there's a hole in this sock.
Right.
But they're still comfortable.
You should probably throw them
yeah,
away.
you probably
but we're
should,
still
but
They're comfortable.
it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is that. I think any kind of looking at what's going on in this movie kind of reveals something that's there, but when you like it, you don't really pay attention. But having to pay attention, it's just kind of like, oh, I don't think this is very good. But it is there. It's in your face the whole time. But I mean, if you have the nostalgia glasses on, it's like, this isn't so bad.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So until you shine a light on it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Keep it in the dark.
Yeah.
I think that's the secret.
When darkness falls is when you should watch it.
No, I agree. I will say T and I watched the shit out of this movie. This was on repeat. We watched it all the time. I remembered it being so creepy and scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's been one of those two where I'm like, I wonder if that holds up because I haven't watched it in so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of doesn't. But I will say it's like you said, I know watching it, the story beats really make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was younger, you're just watching it. Like you're like, okay, now we're here. Like it's an easy kind of thread to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really paying attention and you're invested in the story, there are so many things that don't line up. There is odd character motivation. Like the characters don't make a whole lot of sense. The timeline doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's some really bad ADR, and I don't know why. But I will say this take, I'm kind of a sucker for takes on, things that felt safe in our childhood and kind of making it dark.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we're kind of exploring a dark tooth fairy or like an evil spin on that. I think that's really cool. I think the creature design is probably one of the biggest achievements of the film.
Yeah.
I think that on its face, this could be a 30-minute short film. I said that earlier. John Paul was like an installment in an anthology.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think that unless you're adding more, which you definitely could. This movie's short as hell.
Yeah.
There's so much room for more stories, so much room to flesh out the things that give the plot issues. They did not, at least in the final cut.
Right.
But as it is, this could be a fucking, and you said a short film at the top.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a fucking awesome short film.
And a tiny spoiler for the end. The credits are 10, 11 minutes long.
Yes,
11 minutes long.
they are, which I appreciated.
I bet. You're like, oh, I'm done. But yeah, I think that this is still oddly a lot of fun. I know that a lot of that is nostalgia. A lot of it too is just this easy and digestible. Don't think too much about it. Just throw it on. We're here. Now we're here. You understand the I don't want to say crude, but you understand the plot and, the obstacles in the way. I think you said it best is watch this when darkness falls. Don't look too deep. Don't shine a light. Don't pull a thread. It's still an enjoyable experience for what it is. But did it hold up in the way that I was hoping it would? No, it did not.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree with both of you. I also, of course, remember watching the hell out of this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I was like 12 years old whenever it came out.
Yeah.
And so I still had a few baby teeth to lose.
You're like, fuck.
And I was like, fucking hell, I'm just sweating. I'm like, is this what happens? Did everybody go through this? And I did. This is no hyperbole. I kept some baby teeth in for longer.
Yeah.
Literally because this film scared the shit out of me.
Holding on to baby teeth like out of spite is fucking.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want her dealing. They're thinking it's her business.
They're just in your gums. They're not even
Shoving it back.
Yeah. I'm just eating on one side of my mouth. But yeah, this movie, I remember being terrified by it.
Yeah.
And I think that there are still a few moments that are like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The opening,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. The opening, nobody can say a bad word about the opening.
no. And again, it kind of is a false sense of security for the quality of the film you think you're going to get.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right that when we were kids, it was literally just being along for the ride the entire time.
Yeah.
But even as an adult, watching that beginning, you're like, God damn, that is a great place to start.
Yeah.
It's a real shame that you didn't.
I think that's what it is
Yeah.
that you guys really had something. Like, it's a really, really great opening, and the rest of the film really doesn't,
Yeah.
hold up.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, whenever we get into the bit of production and throughout the episode, I can kind of elaborate a little bit more from the research that I did to kind of explain why a lot of it doesn't work.
Okay.
Because it's not a surprise. You can literally feel it when you're watching the film.
Yeah.
studio meddling.
Yeah, you can.
But I think that even with the negatives that there are in this film, and there are negatives,
Yeah.
I feel like there are some decent positives. Like you said, the creature design.
Yeah.
I think the cinematography is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I like their use of shadows, the use of light, and especially it being such a prevalent theme in the film. You really need to fire on all cylinders when it comes to that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they did. But yeah, narratively, I feel like it leaves a lot to be desired. Because there are moments that are set up that you're like, oh, this is going to come back later.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
It's that.
Because there is a moment I'm like, I think I caught something.
No.
Nah, I guess we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then the dynamics of the characters, we don't even really get to know them as kids or adults, really.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, it shortchanges you as far as what could be with these characters.
There's even you saying that it made me think, because I was talking with your sister the other night. When I finished the movie, I noticed this movie does a really good job of telling you what to see instead of showing you.
Yes.
So something happens and it's telling you, and it's like, but I don't, I guess.
It's that if you don't apply any logic or think about it, because they're telling you, we're running out of time. Oh, shit, they're running out of time. I don't know how they're running out of time,
No.
Yeah.
They just are.
but they've told us.
And there's something that they say later, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the sun does rise.
Yeah.
Eventually. So we don't have to do this forever, you know? But when they were talking like that, I'm like, you don't have to live here.
Yeah. It's strange.
It's very strange, but I was just so confused. But there are things that can absolutely be explained.
Yeah.
Scenes that were in the film that elaborate on things that were cut.
Okay.
I just don't understand
Yeah.
why, especially with this runtime.
Yeah, it is short.
And that's the thing, is they painted themselves into a corner by cutting all those scenes, because it gets to 74 minutes. They were talking about this on commentary, that when they cut so much, they had to do something in order to make the film feature length. And so they did give this in-credit sequence that literally is 11 minutes long. And they're like, there's a lesson to everyone in film school. If you want to make a feature film, it has to be at least 85 minutes. And I was like, thanks. But
But I think when we've cut it so much that we're left, what we're left with isn't even a feature film.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, maybe we were doing too much.
And there is a decent amount of character development,
right.
character work, ideas that are explored in these scenes that I read about and heard them talk about.
Okay.
That it literally doesn't make any sense why a producer would say, we got to get that out of there.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
But I will say, you know, it is a very powerful nostalgia that goes with this film.
Mm-hmm.
And this is nowhere near the last time I will watch it.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'll
No.
watch it again.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we get into everything, I would like to talk a little bit about the production.
Okay.
I got all of this information and the information that I will be citing throughout the episode from a making of featurette, a filmmaker's commentary, and a writer's commentary on the DVD, and articles in Bloody Disgusting, Variety, and Dread Central.
Very nice.
So, very interestingly, this film actually sprouted from a conversation and an idea from comic book writer Joe Harris, who at a comic book convention in 2000 chatted with producer and screenwriter John Fasano.
Okay.
Harris expressed an interest to create a short film based on a twisted version of the Tooth Fairy. His idea was that the Tooth Fairy would gouge out the eyes of children if they happened to peek in the middle of the night.
Okay.
All right.
Is she an eye fairy as well?
Apparently. I will say I was thinking about what we were told about Santa Claus when we were kids.
Oh, yeah, he'll throw pepper in your eyes.
If you
You see
peek.
him?
Well, the thing is, and the true honesty of it is, you know, your parents are working hard.
Take your ass to
Yes,
bed.
and you're making the sleight of hand impossible
Yeah.
if you fucking open your eyes.
But peppers.
I've never heard
Pepper's a
that
bit
one. That was
He's like, pocket pepper.
Yeah.
was it pepper spray?
Oh, God.
God.
That's even worse. We stayed in our rooms, though.
Yeah.
It worked. It worked.
Closed our eyes. I never saw Santa.
Never, not once.
But Harris obviously was thinking similarly
Mhm.
with this twisted idea of the Tooth Fairy. And Fasano, though, was not sure that the idea would work as a short film. And he thought instead that it would work better as a feature.
Okay.
So with Harris's permission, Fasano took this idea to producer John Hegman at Distant Corner Entertainment Group, who immediately saw the appeal of the idea, and Fasano eventually convinced him to finance Harris's short film almost as a proof of concept.
Okay.
After the short film was created in 2001, the response was positive enough to inspire Hegman to get Harris to write a full screenplay for a feature. The short film was actually titled The Tooth Fairy,
Okay.
fittingly, but they were going back and forth between The Tooth Fairy and the title Don't Peek,
All right.
which both work fairly
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I was thinking if this wasn't called Darkness Falls, that Don't Peek would be a good
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
And it almost was. But after Harris went through a few drafts of it, Fasano himself would eventually rewrite it, and in the future, the script would face even more rewrites from screenwriter James Vanderbilt, and it would mark Vanderbilt's first credit as a screenwriter. I will say he would go on to write Zodiac.
Okay.
So great work.
Both equally.
Yeah.
Very great. But having 3 separate screenwriters taking a crack at a screenplay obviously leads to a lot of changes between drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Some elements being dropped completely, with remnants of past elements still present but not explained.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you scrap an idea, you got to go back with tweezers and take out all the
Yeah.
remnants
Yes.
because your audience doesn't know about that idea that's not there anymore.
According to the director, rewrites even continued during production,
Oh, man.
Damn.
which is not a good sign.
No.
Has there been another goddamn rewrite?
But speaking of the director, somewhere between drafts and before everything that the film would eventually become was set in stone, the producers found Jonathan Liebesman, who impressed them immensely with a short film that he made called Genesis and Catastrophe, which is based upon a story by Roald Dahl.
Hell yeah.
But the strength of this short alone earned him an interview with Revolution Studios, and that's, I think, basically the parent company of the Distant Corner Entertainment Group.
Mm-hmm.
But they basically gave him carte blanche to decide among any of their unproduced screenplays which one he wanted to make his feature film debut.
Okay.
And after reading the screenplay for The Tooth Fairy, he was immediately captivated, and he felt that he was the right person to elevate the material he was given. Liebesman, to his credit, tried to draw upon influences of classic horror films that he loved growing up to craft something truly terrifying. But when it was mandated by the studio that the film had to be PG-13, he took influences then from contemporary films like The Others and The Ring and tried to emulate their use of atmospheric tension and terror rather than relying on gruesome gore and visuals as the ultimate payoff.
Okay.
But, as we've discussed already, and as it often goes, after the film was mostly shot, the studio stepped in and forced several changes that we'll talk about. This resulted in the first set of forced reshoots that changed a lot of the tone of the film, removed some of the more psychological elements that were present in the film that we will talk about that will piss you off that they're gone. And it replaced those elements with more standard supernatural fare.
Okay.
This wasn't sufficient enough, and the studio even called for a second round of reshoots.
Oh,
the
my God.
And this added even more explicitly supernatural visuals and even more appearances of a certain creature that we'll definitely talk about later. And as we said at the top in the intro, this film, unfortunately, was not well received by critics, but it was a box office hit, and I think that it even opened at number 1.
Hell
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So, you know.
Okay, Darkness
Wow,
Falls.
that's interesting.
But the thing was, it was intended that this would become a franchise.
Yeah.
But it never came to pass.
A franchise as in this story or like with different kind of tales and stuff?
There was a section that the screenwriters were talking about at the end of the commentary where they were saying that there were some elements left unexplored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or that there were more parts of this mythology that could be elaborated on.
Okay.
And so I think that they wanted to make it to where this character, this creature, would become like a horror icon in a way.
Man,
Oh, okay.
that's disappointing.
Yeah.
But years after the fact, many people involved with it would kind of disown it, this film, including Liebesman, the director, who would later admit that he never really wanted to make a horror film to begin with.
Damn.
Well, what What are we doing?
He said that he hoped that he could make one horror film that he was happy with and kind of use it as a jumping off point to make the films that he really wanted to make.
Right.
But I did also read in an interview years after the release of Darkness Falls, I think he was promoting another horror film he directed because I think he did Texas Chainsaw at the beginning.
Oh.
But, we'll get to that someday.
Someday.
But he would basically say that the film that he wanted to make with Darkness Falls / The Tooth Fairy / Don't Peek was taken away from him and basically butchered. And he would literally call Darkness Falls, and I quote, a piece of shit.
Oh, wow.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
No.
That's
Well, it's a little personal.
It's not American Werewolf in Paris.
No, it's
No. Now, before we collect this film's teeth, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, let's stay in the light. So the film begins with the solemn swelling of strings in the score as we survey a sepia-toned photograph under the golden glow of candlelight. The crash of waves echoes distantly as we spy the towering structure of a lighthouse at the coastline, and we cycle through pictures of a bustling street, women adorned in walking dresses befitting of the era, clutching umbrellas and pushing baby carriages on wiry wheels, before we're shown an aged portrait of the elderly Matilda Dixon, the deep voice of a narrator declaring that over 150 years ago, in the town of Darkness Falls, Matilda Dixon was adored by all the children. Through flickering flames and youthful laughter, various children are captured in pictures, the narrator explaining that whenever one of them lost a tooth, they would bring it to Matilda in exchange for a gold coin, earning her the nickname, the Tooth Fairy.
What's she doing with all these teeth?
I know.
We need some more information on that, I think.
I'd be like, I'll give you a gold coin. You're not fucking going over that.
Yeah, no.
That's weird.
Yeah, I need to know what you're doing with these.
And I need to know right now.
The candlelight shivers shadows across the photos, a wicked wind whipping at the mere muttering of Matilda's moniker as a solitary gold coin falls in slow motion to a wooden tabletop. Unfortunately, the narrator shares that fate was not kind to Matilda, and one night, fire tore through her home on Lighthouse Point, leaving her face horribly scarred. We watch as the flames catch across the surface of the photographs, the images bubbling and warping as the fire reaches a lace curtain, igniting it and engulfing the surrounding area, including the wooden shelf of a vanity, where the flames climb a pincushion and a jar, whose contents are hidden, currently, in bubbling liquid. We'll learn what's in there in just a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As vapors rain down the glass frame of her portrait like tears, the narrator continues that Matilda's burned flesh was so sensitive to light that she could only go out at night, always wearing a porcelain mask so that no one could ever look upon her face. The photo is suddenly torn away to reveal Matilda's visage, hairline cracks marring its pristine surface as we peer into the blackness of its almond-shaped eye. But among further photos of the children of Darkness Falls, the narrator reveals that one day, 2 kids didn't come home, and the townspeople blamed Matilda and hanged her, tearing off her mask and exposing her hideous face to the light.
Why did they blame Matilda?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like, I know I find the gold for
Teeth?
a little odd.
Yeah.
Because I don't want some random lady in town having my children's teeth. But
What is she, Marge Simpson?
she just thinks they're neat.
Yeah.
I don't understand. We've got this transaction going for question mark how long?
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's never hurt a kid. There's never been any issues.
Yeah.
The parents seem to all be cool with this,
Arrangement.
Yeah.
I would love a little more reasoning why she's suspect number 1. Enough for them to do this.
Yeah, that is crazy. I didn't think about that until like right now when you were saying it more and more. If one of the kids loses a tooth and you give them a piece of gold for it? Oh, that's a couple loaves of bread, some milk.
Yeah.
I mean, what, really?
It's a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
Frankly, yeah. They're like, well, it definitely wasn't Matilda because we got to keep this gravy train.
We're eating dinner.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I don't get it.
I will say in the screenplay, apparently what they said, and I guess in the novelization, as far as what I read on Bloody Disgusting, they said that there is much more to Matilda's story than what is presented at the beginning of this film.
Okay.
And we're still not done. But apparently she was a widow, and this is not explored in the film at all, but she had always wanted children, but her husband was like a sea captain. And he was like, give me a few more years of these voyages and then we'll settle down and have some kids. But on one of his last voyages, he dies.
Okay.
And so she never is able to have children like she wanted to. And so she starts appreciating and, to the opinion of some in town, coveting.
Okay, see that...
Yeah, that
makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you would steal my kid or whatever.
Yeah.
Or kidnap
or it was
or
like a
whatever.
matter of time.
Right.
Yeah, well, if she has this mystique and kind of like this tragic story about her, then that makes more sense because it's like the only thing that changed about this lady is she was horrifically injured.
Right.
Like, so now
Yeah.
she's a villain? Like, now she's a suspect?
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. That makes more sense. Maybe if she's like overstepping a little bit or being a little odd.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, the lady that is trying to take everybody's kid and now there's a kid missing. It's probably that lady. That makes more sense.
But Matilda's somber silhouette darkens the gallows in another photograph, which disappears into the flickering fire as Matilda shrieks a scream. But as frames crack and burn in the unforgiving heat, the narrator states that in her dying breath, Matilda laid a curse upon Darkness Falls. But the next morning, the two children were found safe and sound, and the town buried their secret along with Matilda's body.
You little motherfucker.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, so this is a revenge story.
Yeah.
You love it.
And it feels like Kill Bill when it's like that woman deserves
Yeah.
her revenge and we deserve to die. Like, they killed her.
Yeah.
For nothing.
For nothing.
No, yeah.
And I want to know where the hell those little kids were.
The glory? I don't know.
Yeah, because they don't ever say.
No, I need more on that as well.
And dude, it's not even been 24 hours.
Yeah, that was fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
But since then, according to the narrator, some folks believe that Matilda visits the children of Darkness Falls on the night that they lose their last tooth, seeking her vengeance on any who lay their eyes upon her face, fulfilling her curse. We then see the glass jar in Matilda's vanity finally shattering, scattering dozens of pearly white teeth into the air. We then learn of the avowed affliction cast over the town of Darkness Falls moments before her death. What I took before in kindness, I will take forever in revenge. The score hums ominously as through the shards of glass and golden light glinting off of the tumbling teeth, we get the title in red, Darkness Falls.
So she was keeping those teeth, and that is a problem.
Yes, it was.
Make it a little harder for me to defend you.
And what was that liquid? She's like, it keeps the teeth fresh.
Yeah, something. It's a cleaning agent.
Yeah.
No,
It's a
thank you.
pickling liquid.
No, thank you. But this is giving Freddy Krueger, if he were innocent.
Yes.
And I appreciate the don't start none, won't be none of it all, where it's like, just don't fucking look at me.
Yeah.
I have the same rule. Don't perceive me and I won't kill you and snatch your teeth. I don't know. But just don't look at her.
Yeah.
She told you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to fuck with you. Just don't look at me. Don't peek.
That
Would
is-
have been a good title.
Yeah, it would have been.
That is very interesting to throw that in there. A very kind of funny way to like, look, you can get around it.
Yes.
Just don't open your eyes.
Just don't look. She's going to come tonight. You know
Yeah.
she's coming tonight. You just lost your last tooth.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay under the blankets all night.
And that is such a cool element of kind of taking that tale that you've always been told
Yeah.
and making it really frightening.
Yeah.
Giving it like the darkest reason imaginable to follow the rules.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel kind of torn because I really love the visuals of this opening sequence a lot.
Right.
And I did read that it was actually done by Imaginary Forces and Kyle Cooper, who did the opening title for Seven.
Oh.
Okay.
And as well, American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Excellent openings.
Yeah, and this, I feel, is a really good opening, too.
I'll be honest, just from watching this, I was like, I'm in.
Yeah,
you're
good.
sat for sure.
I think the only thing that doesn't work is how expository it is.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And it does mean after we get this, although, you're like, well, everyone who lives in the town obviously knows this tale.
Right.
But because of this, we'll not get a research scene in this film.
Boo.
Yeah.
So take a point away. But I'm like, there are, I like you said, I agree. I like the visuals of it, but there are other ways to do this because we're about to meet a character that is in this situation. So maybe mom is like, oh, don't forget. And he's like, oh, mom, like, shut the fuck up like kids do or whatever. But it's like, yeah,
kids?
I don't know. Kids these days.
Uh-huh.
But there are other ways, to get this across because it being so expository, it makes me feel like, oh, we're about to get so deep into this story that there's not going to be time to establish this. So we're all starting on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's just simply not true for this film.
There was a different way that they got this information across originally.
Okay.
The film opened almost like a book report in the class as we meet the kids.
All right.
I'm not mad at that.
And so they're doing this book report on the history of Darkness Falls and this legend. And so I don't know why they changed that because there's something else that I'll explain that happened in that scene that is pretty wild, but does make other things make a little more sense.
Okay.
But we suddenly find ourselves hovering over the tiled floor of a school bathroom, shadows darting across errant rags and toilet paper as we rise higher above the sinks lining the left wall, the debris disappearing as we cross-fade to discover young Kyle Walsh, played by Joshua Anderson, standing there and leaning in to look at his reflection in the mirror. The crossfade of the rags was kind of odd to me because I didn't really understand the point of it as far as seeing it there and then it's just like cleaned up or whatever.
Right.
But there is a collection of rags on the right that do kind of appear like a face that we will see.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't know if it was kind of like pointing to it being this specter or something.
Right.
Because otherwise I'm like, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
But we watch in a tight shot as Kyle reaches his fingers into his mouth, his eyes focused intently as he wrenches at a loose tooth wobbling in his lower jaw. Blood pours down his fingertips to his knuckles as he removes his fingers from his mouth, spitting crimson saliva into the sink. I thought that we were going to see a tooth come out.
Yeah.
I did too. I'm like, it's not ready yet.
No.
So
Yeah.
like, please just fucking leave it alone.
Yeah.
But that night, we glide through the darkness of a suburban evening, over leaves rustling across asphalt, to settle in on a house surrounded by shrubs at the center of the street. Inside, Kyle rests beneath the blankets under the light of his bedside lamp, with Margaret Walsh, his mother, played by Rebecca Macaulay, sat at his side. As she sweetly caresses his face, Margaret asks if he's still going to ask a girl called Caitlin to the dance tomorrow. Kyle doesn't answer, but Margaret assures her son that he'll do great, and she tells him that she loves him. After giving him a kiss on the forehead, Margaret offers Kyle a good night, stepping away from his bed and lingering for a moment in the doorway, a soft smile on her face as she pulls the door closed behind her. So one thing I did want to point out, this scene is mostly shot from behind the mom.
Right.
And so you don't really see anything that she's actually saying. You only hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of an issue with a lot of things in this film where you see mouths not moving.
Yes.
Or you see mouths moving and not at all saying what we hear.
The whole movie.
Yes. This is one of the few bits of ADR that were properly covered. But what she's saying for real that is not in this film at all is apparently in school today, Kyle got into a fight and he was arguing with one of the boys in his class and he fucking stabbed him with a protractor.
Oh, shit.
That's why Kyle has scratches on his face because he was in a fight today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about that as well.
Yeah.
And that might be why he's inspecting himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
just got in a fucking fight.
And maybe that helped to loosen his tooth.
Right.
Yeah.
But she's basically asking him, what happened today? Why did you do that?
Well, because when she leaves the room, she does look a little uneasy.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was like because she didn't tell him that the tooth fairy was going to blow pepper in his eyes or whatever. I thought it was tooth fairy based worries.
Right.
But it's like, no, I'd be worried too if my son did that today.
Yeah.
And also, if this is what she's talking about, and she's like, hey, you're going to ask that girl Caitlin to the dance? And he's just like,
Yeah.
what sense does that make?
Yeah. Yeah.
So having that completely cut is just kind of odd.
Yeah.
And that does make more sense for the way he's treated later.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand why I, on a very surface level, understand. But the vitriol, it's odd. And I think that him getting a little bit more of the dynamics between him and the other kids in school and even his friends would be very beneficial to the story later on.
Yes. Because I had some questions later that I didn't. I'm still going to ask him.
Yeah. Well, because
that would fix it.
Yeah.
But just as soon as Margaret exits into the hall, Kyle removes his blankets, hopping out of his bed to walk over to a dresser at the other side of the room. Under the green glow of an alien-shaped light, Kyle opens the top of the drawer and reaches inside to retrieve a small object. The camera presses in on it as he grasps it in his fingers, setting it down on the surface of the dresser. His last baby tooth. But as he eyes it, a shadow suddenly whips by his bedroom window, Kyle catching its reflection in a mirror at the far wall. He creeps his way over, peering through the drapes, only to be jump-scared by young Caitlin Green, played by Emily Browning, who sits perched just outside of the glass. And yes, I jumped really hard. That scared the hell out of me.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, because it was almost like you rang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You put it down. We see the shadow. I was like, damn, immediately.
Like, oh,
fast.
fuck.
Yeah.
Don't look, don't peek.
She doesn't fuck around.
No. Emily Browning, we talked about her in Ghost Ship.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was also in Pompeii and Sucker Punch, a series of unfortunate events.
You know, it's funny you mentioning Ghost Ship. The more I watch this film, the more this feels like a Dark Castle picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally
Yeah.
does.
It's kind of weird that
Yeah.
it's not. But Caitlin raises the window open from the outside, Kyle admonishing her tactics as stupid. But she just lets herself into his bedroom, chuckling that Kyle is a wuss. But with her back turned, Kyle notices a pair of underwear on the floor that fell out of his drawer, and he rushes to snatch it up and stash it away. His frantic movements catch Caitlin's attention, and when she asks what he's doing, he leans against the dresser in a failed attempt to appear nonchalant. Snagging his tooth, he offers a very unconvincing nothing before taking a seat at the edge of his bed. Caitlin just shrugs it off before diving into the reason why she actually came, sharing that she and a bunch of friends are going to go swimming at the quarry, inviting Kyle to tag along. But Kyle declines, insisting that he has to get up early for practice. When an award resting on one of Kyle's shelves catches Caitlin's attention, she remarks that she can't believe he still has it, remembering that he won it in kindergarten. But she crosses over to Kyle, taking a seat next to him on his bed, and she makes sure that he's certain he doesn't want to go to the quarry. But Kyle doesn't answer, and instead just pokes the socket that once held his tooth in his mouth. When Caitlin notices that he's bleeding, she steals the tissue from his bedside table and offers it to him. As he dabs the blood with it, explaining that it's just his tooth, Caitlin asks if it's his last one. When Kyle confirms that it is, Caitlin shares that this one is special, his last baby tooth. It means that he's not a baby anymore. Pensive piano plods in the score as Caitlin excuses herself and makes her way over to the opened window. But Kyle stops her, dried blood smeared across his chin as he calls out her name. When she turns around to face him again, Kyle nervously chokes out that there's a school dance on Saturday night, and it's like one of those boy-girl dances.
Don't they go to the same school?
Yeah, they do. She's like, yeah,
I know.
Yeah, I'm well aware of the dance. Caitlin immediately understands, once again taking a seat next to Kyle on his bed. And summoning all of his courage, Kyle continues that boys ask girls, so? But Caitlin interrupts, revealing that she already told her mom that Kyle would be by at 7 o'clock and that she can drive them to the dance. The pair share a smile as the strings swell sweetly in the score, and Caitlin leans in to kiss Kyle on the lips. After she confirms their date for the dance, she leans in to kiss him once more, noting that the first time shouldn't taste like blood, it should be sweet. She then reaches for the tooth resting in Kyle's palm and places it properly beneath his pillow. But when she makes her way over to the window again, she turns around to offer a word of warning before making her exit. Remember, when the tooth fairy comes, don't peek. His curtains billowing in the breeze, Kyle walks over to the window, watching as Caitlin, framed by tree branches, glances over to him and offers a gentle wave goodbye before disappearing into the dark.
What a little badass.
Yeah.
I thought that this was such a cute and compelling little character.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's gone. Like when she leaves, that moxie, the personality, it goes with her.
Yeah.
With the Emily Browning version, which I know I'm getting out of myself, but you
but
know.
Still.
Yeah.
It does feel like this is the pair we're going to follow.
Yes.
He's competitive or he's smart or he's whatever, but he doesn't want to lead. She's going to lead him. We're going to do this together. And then
Nah.
yeah. It's the tooth fairy.
Right. But thunder crackles sharply as we cut to black. When we return, we descend the ceiling and the walls of Kyle's bedroom, the blue light of evening cast through a shivering sheet of rainfall that pours down the glass of his windows. The wind howls and whispers grow cacophonous as we press in on Kyle, who rests fast asleep in his bed. But when the whispers give way to a sinister shriek, Kyle lurches up awake in his bed, his face covered in a slick sheen of startled sweat. A guttural rasp echoes all around him as his eyes pan across his dark room, the shadows dancing over his walls as he surveys his surroundings to find nothing at all. One thing that the director talked about on commentary was dealing with a low budget that they had.
Mm-hmm.
They said that they wanted to try to add production value to the film on the cheap. And so working with Sony Pictures, I believe, they talked to Gloria Borders, who won an Oscar for Terminator 2, and she hooked the production up with Randy Tom and Skywalker Sound to work on the sound design for this film.
Okay.
And Randy Tom, his filmography is insane.
Yeah.
I was looking at it. There's Star Wars, Apocalypse Now, Mars Attacks.
Damn.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
The one that matters.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
The most important one.
Mm-hmm. But it was originally, before Randy Tom came on board, these sounds that we heard, they were going to be more like the locust-y sounds in Mimic.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, why don't we have like an old woman's raspy breathing? And they were like, that's great. It's like, how was that not your first thought?
That's the character.
Yeah.
You mean she's not made of locust?
No. It's like, well, obviously we're going insect, right? It's like, no, where would
Why
you
would
think
we?
that? So I'm glad, because that is one thing that really works for me.
Yeah.
Because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But Kyle collapses back into his blankets, pulling them over his head. But the whispers suddenly return, much closer now, peculiar and pained. And when Kyle lowers the blanket to uncover his eyes, he watches in trembling terror as a shadow glides across his wall, passing over to his bedroom door, casting a wide darkness over the room as if enveloping it in its unfurled wings. Kyle, for whatever reason, discards his comforter, rushing to cover himself only in his thin white bedsheet.
It's hot, man. I'm fucking nervous. I'm
Well,
sweating.
he was sweating. That's And it's like, oh yeah, the 3 inches of the comforter will make much more of a difference.
That's what's gonna.
I'm like, this kid's stupid.
That's what's gonna protect him.
Yeah. But with a snarl, the shadow darts across the room and over his coverings, ruffling them as it passes. Kyle struggles to catch his breath as he slowly stretches his hand outside the safety of his sheet to blindly reach for a flashlight on his nightstand. Once he seizes it, he swiftly returns his hand beneath his blanket, switching the flashlight on. Steeling himself, we watch from above as Kyle peels the sheet from his face, and from his point of view, his boundary slipping away, a figure hovers above him, shrouded all in black, its eyes wide and watchful from behind a cracked porcelain mask. This is Matilda Dixon, the Tooth Fairy, portrayed by an uncredited Anthony Burroughs, with voice work provided by Gary A. Hecker.
So absolutely not.
No.
I also feel like we've lived in Darkness Falls this is generations later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why have we not imparted this onto our children? Why have we moved the hell out of Darkness Falls?
Yeah,
But
no,
why aren't we teaching them this?
Yeah, that is.
Because Kyle can't be the first one she's visited, right?
Yeah.
That comes up later in a very, unexplored
I'm
way.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
But I also, if they had that book report
Right.
at the beginning, it seems like it would be common knowledge that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And later it appears to be common knowledge that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I wanted to talk very quickly about Matilda Dixon now that we're getting a glimpse of her. And this pertains to this and things that we'll see later on
Okay.
of her. I read an interview on IGN from 2003 with Jason Matthews, the creature effects supervisor, and Richard Landon, the mechanical effects supervisor. And they said that they filmed, I guess, the majority of this without a creature at all. And the director was a huge fan of Stan Winston, so he went to Stan Winston. And Stan Winston Studios did Matilda, there is a person at times, the uncredited person that you mentioned, but for the majority, it is a puppet. It is an appallingly realistic puppet being puppeted by 6 puppeteers.
You fooled me.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I saw a video of them kind of rehearsing and practicing with it, and the way that they're able to move the face and the body and just cock the head to the side. It looks like a human being. It is unbelievable. But Jason Matthews said that, like I said, they didn't have a creature for the majority of filming. So when they went to Stan Winston was like, why don't you use the Matilda Dixon character? And then it's as much of a character as it is a creature.
Why do you need to be told
I don't
this?
Yeah. I thought that's what this was about.
I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it was going to be a giant locust. I don't know why. Yeah, why they needed to be told that. But they said that they had chosen to go with a puppet because nobody would have to sit in makeup, and there are limitations to what they could even portray in makeup as far as this character stuff that we see later on. And it was the move. I think she looks fucking scary.
Oh, yeah.
I think she looks so cool. I think the puppetry, the puppeteers, chef's kiss. I think that's really one of the strongest points of the film is the Tooth Fairy, is
Yes.
Matilda
Yeah.
Dixon.
And I feel like when you have this porcelain mask with everything shrouded in shadows, to have one bright white focal point,
Yeah.
it's such a smart design.
And it's
Yeah.
so creepy. It's genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
And the way that she moves, it's just, it is a success for me.
It is that, because if she just looked cool and then it was just like, oh, you're not,
Yeah.
you're just kind of there. But it is the movement
Yes.
and everything with it that really sells the Tooth Fairy, part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a shot at the end of the sequence that I'm like, oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fucking good.
Yeah. One thing that I don't understand is I kept reading and I saw personally, I don't know if it was unused screen tests or if it was an original intention, but I saw Doug Jones as the Tooth Fairy
Really?
in a completely different makeup. It was long black hair, long expansive wings. It was frightening.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was between reshoots or if it was rewrites or what, to where they didn't use this at all.
Yeah.
If they ever filmed with him to begin with and it's just lost forever. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I love what we got, but if Doug Jones is on the table, you always go.
Oh, no, yeah.
You always go Doug Jones.
Yeah.
But at the sight of Matilda, Kyle screams, his frantic fingers switching his flashlight back on, the bright light causing the figure to flee from its brightness, her departure a shrieking and shrinking shadow. Kyle's cries awaken Margaret in her bed, who sits up sharply, bailing out of her bedroom and into the long, dark hall.
It sounds like Kyle just blinded a demon. I better go check. It's like, what the hell was that? Knees to chest.
Yeah.
Some crazy shit is going on.
She does take her sweet ass time.
Yeah, oh, no.
Kyle?
Get your ass up.
Well, she heard the demon.
Yeah.
She was like,
I'll give him a minute.
She's like, when I was a kid, the same shit.
Yeah.
So I know what he's going through.
Better not peek.
Yeah.
Yes.
But step by step, Margaret inches her way forward in the hall, calling out her son's name as she creeps closer to his room. But through a slice of fluorescent light, Kyle lurches out of the bathroom, seizing his mother by the wrist as his flashlight clatters to the floor, the batteries bursting from its broken top. Through gasps, Kyle barely breathes as he shudders. I saw her. Margaret attempts to calm her son, asking him what he means, before reaching for his face and holding it in her hands as Kyle meekly mutters, I peeked. With stern certainty, Margaret assures her son that there's nobody in this house but them, but Kyle quavers that she's wrong. They peer down to the end of the hallway at his bedroom door, which rests slightly ajar. Margaret suggests that she'll go take a look, but when Kyle begs for her not to, she pulls away from him and makes her way to the door. Kyle pleads with her to stay in the light, whispering it to himself almost as a mantra as Margaret continues toward his bedroom. Kyle pants his prayer in the pallid light of the bathroom as Margaret creaks the door open, surveying her surroundings, and once she deems the room to be safe, she turns to face her son at a distance, offering with a smile, See, Kyle? There's nothing to be afraid of. But just as soon as these words leave her lips, does Margaret catch the reflection of the specter who struck fear in the heart of her son. Through darkness slinks Matilda, her bright mask a blur in quick cuts as she reaches her withered hand through swirling shadows and seizes Margaret firmly in her grasp. The bedroom door slams shut as Kyle retreats swiftly to the safety of the bathroom, closing and locking the door. He dives for cover behind the shower curtain, tearing its edge free from a few hooks as he cowers into the bathtub. I was like, damn, nothing for your mom?
Thanks for the assist. Yeah,
She's only been feeding you and taking care of you your whole fucking life.
so fuck.
Yeah. And lock. So even if she gets away, she's like, Kyle!
I'll be honest for a second. I was like, why is she attacking the mom? I was like, that's not her tooth.
No.
But I forgot she did see her.
peeked, yeah.
She did see her.
But I'm like, this really went from the best night of his life to the fucking worst.
Yeah.
And he really did just abandon.
It's crazy. But as Kyle sits there shivering, his bedroom door slowly creaks open, revealing the bloody and battered body of his mother lying lifeless on the floor. Thunderous rumbling begins to emanate from within the walls of the bathroom, Kyle following the sounds with his anxious eyes as an unearthly whisper hisses and the presence of the figure settles with a thud on the opposite side of the door. Kyle reaches a trembling hand for the shower curtain, his breaths shaky as he pulls it open slowly, rising to his feet. But before he can step out of the tub, the bathroom door bursts open, Matilda's ragged shrieks echoing into the hall as Kyle clatters backwards. He stares forward, half hidden behind the shower curtain as the camera pulls back into the seemingly empty hall, the storm raging through the windows outside as percussive strings stab sharply in the score, and the camera tilts upward to reveal Matilda, hovering in the hall above the bathroom door, safe from the beaming light, her long black cloak whipping in the wind as she howls, peering downward in wait, hopeful to have her revenge on another child of the town that wronged her. The score rumbles beneath Matilda's shrieks as we cut to black.
That shot was excellent.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I honestly, the strength of this opening is ridiculous.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I love everything about it.
Yeah.
And that last shot that we see, that is why I kept those teeth in my mouth.
I get it.
I was like, fuck that. But it's so good. The suspense,
Yeah.
the creature, the way the shots, it's very methodically composed.
Yeah.
Everything is able to breathe and you're able to let this fear kind of settle in. And yeah, you're right. And you're like, this feels like a perfect short film.
Yeah.
What's wild is the director, he said that he didn't think that the shot would work when they described it to him. And he later acknowledged, he's like, yeah, it's great. But it's like, how do you not think?
I'm like, where was everybody at?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how plugged in we were for some of the stuff that I'm hearing.
But that next morning, neighbors gather outside of the Walsh home as Margaret, wrapped in a sky blue body bag, rests on a gurney and is loaded into an ambulance by uncredited paramedics. As the camera arcs around the scene, young Larry Fleischman, played by Daniel DeParis, crosses through the street to find Caitlin and her mother. Caitlin greets Larry, who stands puzzled, wondering what happened. But we watch as the medical examiner, played by Bruce Hughes, declares to Captain Henry, played by John Stanton, that there's no next of kin, and the state will have to look after Kyle for now. The conversation continues behind Larry, Caitlin, and her mother, as the medical examiner reveals to the captain that Margaret was already dead when they arrived. Henry laments that he knew Kyle was having problems, but Jesus Christ.
Hey, so let's make sure we talk about this in earshot of these kids. But also,
Who knew him?
and probably knew his mother as well.
Yeah.
But you cut out the problems he was having.
Yeah.
So I was like, what problems was he having?
Yeah. We don't know that.
Yeah, maybe.
We're who you forgot. to
Yeah.
tell.
Yes.
Don't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the examiner recounts that it appears his mother put up a bit of a struggle. And as the camera continues to circle, we finally find Kyle, who stands stoic beneath a trauma blanket in front of a police cruiser, his face lowered and his eyes glaring forward beneath his brows. I know that he's seen a lot, but this is not a good look to say I didn't kill my mom.
Yeah.
Just... But Henry leans his arm on the cruiser just behind Kyle, introducing him to an uncredited Dr. Jenkins, who leans in attentively as Henry tells Kyle that he wants him to go with her for now. He's loaded into the back of the vehicle, and we notice a bruise at his neck and a small slash at the side of his cheek as he turns to face Caitlin, who stands at the side of the car as the door slams shut. They peer at each other through the window, a nervous Caitlin brushing her hair behind her ear as she darts her eyes away. But a voice suddenly calls out, "Caitlin?" We crossfade to the present day, finding the adult Caitlin Green, played by Emma Caulfield Ford. She turns away from the bright sunlight pouring in through the window to face the bespectacled Dr. Murphy, played by Steve Mouzakis. We spy them down the long hallway of a hospital, on-screen text reading, 12 years later.
Emma Caulfield Ford. She's got a credit in Fear of the Walking Dead.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. WandaVision.
What?
And she was in 85 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw on a behind the scenes thing, they were saying they felt so lucky to get her from Buffy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess in my own mind, I supplied this role being played by Leslie Bibb.
Really?
Yes. And so I was like, oh,
No?
that's not her at all.
And I can't remember if we did, but Steve Mouzakis has a credit on Late Night with the Devil.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That makes sense because this was filmed in Australia.
Okay.
And I think that was too, wasn't it?
It was.
Nice.
But as the pair continue down the hall together, Murphy consults the patient file in his hands, explaining to Caitlin that nyctophobia is very common among his age group. He notes that they've run 1 CAT scan and 2 MRIs at her behest, but the conclusions all say the same thing. There's nothing wrong with her brother. But Caitlin counters that her brother hasn't been able to sleep for more than 10 minutes at a time for the last 3 weeks, and she sarcastically urges Murphy to go tell her brother that there's nothing wrong with him. But Murphy just sighs that they've run every test possible and that there's nothing more that they can do. One thing that was very interesting to me is the amount of homages that the director put into this film.
Mm-hmm.
This entire sequence of them walking down the hall and the camera pulling back to follow them, that's Jack Torrance going to the gold room.
Okay.
I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I do want to call out very quickly the cinematographer of this film, Daniel Loudston. He often works with Guillermo del Toro, but he shot Silent Hill.
Okay.
What the hell?
Yeah, and he's a 2-time Oscar nominee.
Awesome.
But I think that he does really great work in this film. I think that it does kind of get overshadowed by the film's narrative and some of the other choices made.
Yeah.
But his work, the way that he uses darkness and light and shadow,
Yeah.
it's great.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing before we move on, they had mentioned that there was a lot of back and forth on how much the time jump should be.
Yeah.
In some of the drafts, it was 12 years. In some of the drafts, it was 20 years.
Oh, damn.
In some drafts, Caitlin's brother is not her brother, but her son.
That kind of makes more sense
Yeah.
to me. And I think that the gap should have been bigger,
Oh, yeah.
personally.
Absolutely. And I feel like it doesn't make any sense with what we learn for these characters to be the ages that they're claiming to be.
Yeah.
It just does not work. But there's also drafts to explain where Caitlin's parents are and why she's caring for her brother. And that was cut out too.
Yeah, because we don't get any of that.
No. But Caitlin's conversation with the doctor is interrupted when fearful screams echo out into the hallway, alerting Nurse Lauren, played by Kesti Marasi, to race down the hall and into a nearby room. She rushes to open the blinds, covering the large windows, letting the sunshine in, as Michael Green, Caitlin's younger brother, played by Lee Cormie, cowers in fright at the center of his bed.
Real quick, Kesti Marasi, she does have a credit in Wolf Creek from 2005.
Interesting.
We need to do that one.
Yeah.
That's another Australian horror, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
But Caitlin enters the room in a hurry, reaching her brother and securing him in her warm embrace as she asks the nurse what happened. Lauren stands shameful at the edge of Michael's bed, sharing that he was asleep and she just closed the blinds. She didn't think it would be a big deal. As Lauren wrings her hands nervously, Caitlin clutches her brother, who clings to her with rapid and shaky breaths. He shudders. I saw her. It can't be dark. But Caitlin notices just above Michael's patient bracelet rests 2 symmetrical slashes on his forearm. She sits puzzled for a moment before promising her brother that she won't let them shut off the lights again, assuring him that he'll be okay.
We're not going to say anything about the scratches?
No.
That was my exact note. And yeah, he looks fine to me, Doc. It's like that. He's like, well, there's nothing wrong with your brother. And then they go in the room and he's like, like fucking freaking out. It's like, dude,
He's scared.
he's horrified.
Why'd you make him? You made him the Adderley boy from King of the Hill.
That's how he was. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Also, just leave the fucking blinds open.
Yeah, I think that's
Like,
the thing.
I feel like we've already established
This is what he's afraid of.
the patients. Yeah, like, let him sleep.
I will say that as something later made me ask a question, but I think here I can still ask it here then. We've tried everything. Have you tried just letting him sleep in the room with all the lights on?
Probably not.
They're
I mean,
like,
just turn them all on. Let him sleep in there. He likes the lights on.
well, nobody thought of that.
Yeah.
People don't sleep in the light. Let's not get crazy.
And I will say, for someone who can't sleep more than 10 minutes, we see this kid sleep a lot in this.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So it's like, what have we been doing? But we suddenly cut to the bright lights of Las Vegas at dusk, hovering over traffic and landmark locations as Lookout Below by Closure blasts from an unknown source.
I have in my notes that I knew the two of y'all were going to be feeling some type of way about
Yeah.
these.
Yeah.
Is that what that was?
I
But
guess.
I'll tell you though, all the years it's been since I've seen this film, as soon as the scene started, I was like, look out below.
No, I remembered it.
Because I was like, man, it was so repeated.
Mhm.
But yeah, I thought
It's ingrained in there. I just don't remember rock being in such a weird place
Yeah.
in the early 2000s.
Felt bad for a second.
Yeah, it's like, damn, is that what we were doing?
it is what we were doing. That is featured so prominently.
Yeah. It is.
Made me laugh.
But we find the adult Kyle Walsh, played by Cheney Clay, rifling through a bag in his apartment and retrieving a handful of flashlights.
So Cheney Clay, he does have a credit in Legally Blonde from 2001.
Interesting.
Yes. And he was on 16 episodes of The Shield.
That I remember.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he passed away very young,
Okay.
That's terrible.
tragically. But I think, and I feel like his performance in this film, because of all the changes, and we'll talk about it a little more later, it results in an uneven performance, but it's not his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a point where I was just like, what direction are y'all giving them?
It's
'Cause-
that. Yeah. It feels confused.
Yeah.
And it's really not fair to him as an actor.
No.
I remember reading something about him winning some thespian award in theater. Like he was a great actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something happened here. I'll elaborate a little bit more on some of the changes that were made, but I don't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But the camera pans around the room, past a generator that rests in the corner, arcing by a series of lamps and several beaming fixtures that flicker to life overhead. Kyle takes his newfound flashlights over to a counter at the center of the room, swapping out the large batteries for new ones and chucking the dead shells into a battery graveyard just off the side of the countertop. Afterward, he sits down at a desk in the corner of the room, twisting the cap off of a prescription bottle, and as the white pills scatter across the surface of his table in a tight shot, we also spy a few words on the bottle's label. Kyle Walsh. Take 2 tablets twice daily. Antipsychotic. Another bottle enters the fray, sections of its label reading, every 4 hours, for depression, as Kyle's fingers collect the small pills to pop them into his mouth. He arranges more pills in a line at the edge of his desk, sliding them one by one into his palm and downing them with a glass of water.
I feel like we saw him take some of these pills more than once.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like, I see the vision, the lights, the medication, the paranoia. He's free, but he's not free.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle's moment of medication is disturbed when the telephone behind him begins to ring. Caitlin stands nervously at a payphone in the hall of the hospital, the receiver pressed to her ear as Kyle answers on the other end. The pensive piano of the score accompanies Caitlin's query as she asks if this is indeed Kyle Walsh's number, telling the voice on the other end that she's Caitlin Green. Kyle stands at the counter in his apartment now, sternly admonishing the caller that this isn't funny. But Caitlin continues, reminding him that it's Kat, which is the nickname he called her when they were kids, that I forgot to mention earlier. But she also adds that he asked her to the dance, but never took her. He had a great reason.
I mean,
Wow.
Let's not lead with that.
I had a lot going on that night.
Yeah. Cut me some slack, please.
You stood me up that weekend.
Yeah,
It's like,
I-
oh.
Really?
Don't
All
recall
right.
it that way. Kyle can't believe it, leaning forward to steady himself on the surface of the counter, as Caitlin chuckles that he's a hard man to track down. She admits that it's been forever, and after breezing past a few awkward pleasantries, Kyle asks Caitlin what she wants. Struggling to find the words, Caitlin explains that it's her brother, Michael. He's in the hospital, and he's really scaring her. He won't sleep, not even for 10 minutes at a time. It's the things he says, and he won't even let them shut off any of the lights. She says that the doctors are claiming that he has nyctophobia, and Kyle understands. Night terrors. But Caitlin remembers that that's what the doctors said that Kyle had when his mother was killed. Caitlin just thought that maybe Kyle could tell her how he got over it. But an otherworldly whisper warbles as we find Kyle in profile, discovering the far wall of his home covered in nightmarish sketches of various size, all of the same subject. The pale porcelain mask worn by the specter who slaughtered Kyle's mother, a soulless vacancy within the shadows where her eyes should be. Kyle admits to Caitlin that he didn't get over it, as his eyes trace his eerie artwork.
That's a negatory, good buddy. But I'm like, who did he think was trying to prank call him with the kid that he was friends with
It's too specific.
12 years ago?
Yeah.
My note here was I really hope we get some insight into the intervening years between like that time jump, and I was left wanting.
Yeah.
I was also stood up, just like Caitlin was.
That was the worst thing that happened that weekend.
But this phone call, I feel like it just gives so many questions that we don't get answers to. How did she get in touch with him? Because it doesn't seem like anybody else is checking for Kyle in town.
Yeah.
And the energy that she has in reaching out and saying, I think that maybe you can help. And the energy that she has when he's there trying to help.
Yes.
Really confuses me. Bitch, why did you call me?
Yeah.
And to my understanding as well, when you talk about tracking him down,
Right.
it's not explained or established in the film, but Darkness Falls, I believe, is supposed to be in Maine, even though it's...
Oh, shit.
Okay.
And he's in Vegas?
Yeah, clear across the country.
Right.
Sidebar, the name of the town, and we see it in his bedroom when he's a kid, was supposed to be Port Fairy, which is a real town in Australia. And so they were using the name, and it makes perfect sense when you're talking about the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
But that was another studio mandate that they changed it to Darkness Falls.
Of course.
Yeah.
That would explain the little boy's accent, too.
Yeah. Later, they forget.
Yeah. Well, shit got scary.
It did. It did. Like, I mean, you know, stuff happens. We all become different people when we're scared.
We come from different countries.
Become who we really are.
There's a little Australian in all of us.
But as the score grows ominous, we fade into a shot of seemingly never-ending trees, only to glide over them and descend upon the sunlit town of Darkness Falls, a tall white lighthouse at the distant coastline, and the surrounding ocean reaching toward the sky at the horizon. We watch as Kyle enters St. Francis Hospital, the camera hovering over his shoulder as he adjusts the bag slung over it, making his way down the hallway and into Michael's room. A chair sits parked at the edge of Michael's bed, a jacket hanging off the back of it, but the bed itself is empty. Kyle peers past it to see the reflection of Michael's face in the metal cabinet just next to his bed, creeping over to find Michael parked in front of it on the floor. Kyle correctly guesses him to be Michael, and he assures the kid that he isn't gonna hurt him. Michael sits listening, spying Kyle through the reflection as he introduces himself, explaining that Caitlin told him that Michael is afraid of the dark and that it makes it tough to sleep. He asks Michael if he gets a lot of sleep, and the little boy just lowers his head sheepishly as Kyle concurs that he doesn't either. After a whole 15 seconds of one-sided conversation, Kyle announces regretfully, well, this was a bad idea. It's like, give the kid a second.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I think it's a horrible idea for him to just wander in and talk to this kid. Wouldn't Caitlin be the one to make an introduction?
Yeah.
You would think.
I was like, it's really concerning that he could just stroll in here and be like, hey, you Michael?
I guess the hospital's like, yeah, room 1A. Just, whoever you are.
What?
And again, for as much as we learn, people do recognize him in this town.
Yeah.
You would think people would be like, what the fuck?
True.
What are you
yeah.
doing here?
Yeah. But when the bulb in a lamp across the room begins to buzz, catching the attention of both of them, Kyle crosses over to secure it in the socket, which ceases its flickering. Grateful, Michael sits up, resting on the edge of the bed as he asks Kyle if it's true that when you grow up, you're not afraid of the dark anymore.
Hell no, kid.
I'm more afraid. Kyle lies that it is true, as Michael crawls beneath his covers and Kyle sets down his bag, taking a seat in the chair at the foot of the bed, elaborating that when you're older, you realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. Michael wonders why Kyle is still afraid then, and the only reason Kyle can reach for is that sometimes old habits die hard. At what point in this conversation did you gather my fear about the dark?
He said, we see each other.
Yeah.
He's like, you're bullshitting me, and that's kind of you, but
let's be real. Yeah.
Level with me. Kyle searches for a flashlight in his bag, referring to it as his peace of mind as he retrieves it for Michael. He hands it over to him, and the little boy just holds it in his hand, and instead of turning it on, he just lets it lie limply as he mutters, "She won't come in the light." The camera presses in on Kyle as he feigns ignorance, but Michael is well aware that Kyle knows who he's talking about. Michael knows that Kyle has seen her too, but Kyle just wonders why Michael would say something like that. Michael just answers that it's the truth, but he then shares something quite frightening, that sometimes he thinks about turning off all the lights and letting her come and take him. He thinks that maybe it would be easier to do that than to continue being scared.
Just don't look. Just don't look.
There's a whole song about it.
There's a whole song.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the rule?
Yeah, but I think he already has looked. I think that's the problem.
If he looked, he'd be dead.
Well, I think he did look once, but maybe.
The light hasn't been off.
I think he would have to if he lost his fucking tooth 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's still scared shitless. I
I
would
just
think.
don't understand. I think that if anything, Kyle would be like, not trying to sugarcoat it and be like, look, like this is, yeah, it is real.
Yeah.
And she is coming and you need to be ready. Because look what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know why he's lying.
It is weird because him even being like, I see it. You're sweating. You're all nervous. It's like, dude, you know what I know.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Treat me like,
Yeah.
you know.
It's that.
But maybe it's just a thing that you do trying to protect children.
Yeah.
But lying in this instance is not going to protect this child. He needs to be ready.
No, yeah.
She's coming for that ass.
Yeah. Don't turn the light off.
Yeah.
Keep the lights on. You're absolutely right.
No, yeah.
She is coming. You want to see my new chainsaw document? He needs to be ready. He needs to be on
does.
alert.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
But he asks Kyle if he ever thought that it would be easier to just do that as well. And Kyle's silence is more than enough of an adequate answer. Michael declares, "She's going to kill me, you know." But Kyle assures Michael that she isn't going to kill him, that nothing's going to happen to him. Caitlin would never let it. But Michael frets fearfully that Caitlin can't stop her. No one can stop her. And almost on cue, Caitlin suddenly stands in the doorway, frozen at the sight of her childhood friend, the recipient of her very first kiss, and the boy who stood her up for that dance one time for very good reasons. But she asks his name into the air, getting his attention and bringing his conversation with Michael to an end. Out in the hall, Kyle and Caitlin officially reunite, the pair embracing warmly, both in disbelief that Kyle actually made the trip. As they pull apart, Caitlin asks for Kyle's honest assessment of her brother. But Kyle answers her question with another question, asking what Michael's doctors are saying. Caitlin sighs as she recounts their diagnosis, which she clearly disagrees with. That Michael's a kid, that he's afraid of the dark, and that he's confused. Kyle acknowledges that growing up in Darkness Falls will do that to you. He then flashes a grin to Caitlin that I don't think meets the moment. It's very odd timing. No. But they take a seat together on a nearby bench as Caitlin levels with him. She shares her reluctance in even asking Kyle this, but she does so anyway, inquiring what really happened to him the night that his mother died. Kyle looks away, his voice soft with reluctance, but Caitlin persists, adding that whatever is happening to Michael, it seems like the same. But Kyle interrupts her with a sharp no. Caitlin then counters that the things that Michael is saying, but Kyle sees them as exactly that, just things. Caitlin retrieves Michael's patient file, opening it up and placing it in front of Kyle, revealing Michael's scribbled drawings, a ghostly pale face scratched into the shadows of a black piece of paper. Kyle recognizes it immediately, quick flashes of his own drawings plaguing his thoughts so certainly that he has to shake them away. Caitlin asks if he's okay, but Kyle turns to meet her eyes, asking, "Did Michael just lose a tooth?" Caitlin reveals that he did, his last one, but she can't stifle her chuckle as she scoffs. "You don't really still believe that, do you?" She acknowledges that they all grew up with the story, but that's all it was, a story meant to scare them. Kyle sits pensive for a moment before slamming the files shut, realizing that it was a mistake for him to come here.
Okay, so hold on, though. The same thing's happening to your little brother that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to help you and tell you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. Then you're like, shut the fuck up. Nobody thinks that. I don't understand. What?
I understand. I'm so confused because he starts so clearly in denial about it all.
Yeah.
And then he immediately shifts to being like, okay, actually, it's the tooth fairy, that ghost we talked about
Yeah.
when we were kids. And so she is clearly looking for a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Why not humor him?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Y'all don't want to hear me. You just want to dance. Because it's like, literally, why did you call me?
Yeah. Well, she called him because she thought that he was over it. And meanwhile, his fucking apartment is like beaming.
Yeah.
And that's something else that does change from previous drafts that they talked about is in some versions of the story, Kyle is kind of in denial himself about what has happened, and he personally is trying to convince himself that the Tooth Fairy was a figment of his imagination.
Okay.
And so if he's doing that, she's bringing up this stuff that he's trying to bury.
Yeah.
But then why are you drawing it all the time? Or why, so you're leaving certain things to where it's like, maybe it was therapeutic to draw it to say, this is what I saw. It's not real.
Yeah.
But you're also like, did he just lose a tooth?
Yeah. Well, and so that fits for the beginning of this conversation and for the beginning of his conversation with Michael, but it doesn't fit for anything else.
No. So that's, again, you're leaving remnants of things that aren't a part of the film anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's no point that Kyle is like, oh, that's not real at all. Except when he's trying to lie to Michael. But then not even a minute later, he's like, it's the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
But Kyle rises quickly from his seat, heading for the exit. But before he can reach the doors, Caitlin stops him in the lobby. Kyle admits to her that he doesn't think he knows how to help Michael. But suddenly, arriving in the lobby is the adult Larry Fleischman, played by Grant Pirro, who stands surprised in his suit when he spies Kyle through his large framed glasses.
I feel like even one added line, either in the past or on the phone or anything, would have made this reveal more impactful.
Oh, yeah.
Because this kid didn't even talk
Yeah.
when we saw him before.
Well, he said, like, what's happening?
Okay, yeah, profound. Yeah,
I'm
bad.
Larry.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something more in that scene from the classroom that was cut.
Yeah.
Right.
But Kyle recognizes him immediately, and Larry suddenly softens, announcing that it's so great that he came, even giving him a handshake and a hug. Kyle appears quite uncomfortable, but Larry just retreats behind Caitlin, resting his hand on the small of her back as he asks, "So, is there any reason for us to panic or what?" Caitlin looks away despondently as Kyle answers that there isn't, but Larry is relieved to hear this, sharing that that's what he keeps telling Katie, adding that they have some of the best doctors in the state right here in this hospital. But he then changes the subject, offering to take them both out to dinner tonight, suggesting that they can celebrate the prodigal's return properly. Caitlin declines the offer, stating that she plans to just stay here with Michael, and Larry understands, responding with the polite, "Good night, honey."
We're in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as he walked up and put his hand on it, I was
Yeah,
like, okay, we get it.
all
We
right,
get it,
all
dude.
And we do get it, but dude, that was like really upsetting. Like, could you imagine if you put your hand on JP's back and he just was like, ugh. Like he just turns away.
He definitely seems more into it than she does.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as Caitlin turns to walk away, Kyle calls out to her, causing her to turn around swiftly. As soon as she does, Kyle offers his apologies that he couldn't help Michael. But Caitlin just departs without a word, leaving Larry to extend another invitation to his old acquaintance. Somberly, Kyle suggests that maybe he's been here long enough already. But before he can make his exit, Larry supposes that they could go to the inn for a drink. When Kyle informs Larry that he doesn't drink, Larry coaxes him. Come on! I haven't seen you in 12 years, man. One drink's not going to kill anybody.
So I don't drink means I don't drink.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That I was like, I don't know about this, Larry. I don't like that.
I will say, outside of that aspect, as a kid, I hated Larry.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
I think because they're really setting you up and they really want you to hate Larry.
Right.
But outside of that one detail, I don't really know that there is really a reason to hate him so much.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of with most of the characters in the movie is just kind of like you don't give us enough to feel anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, I know it's a quick movie, but it does have that effect because we do get some stuff from Larry, but it's just like, oh, what do you want me to do with him? Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I don't understand.
Because you know that they want you to be like, yeah, you need to dump this loser.
Yeah.
Or the cool guy with the flashlight.
Yeah. I guess.
You know?
That you kissed in elementary school.
Yeah.
And have held on to it for 12 years. But Caitlin returns to her brother's side, Michael resting under the light of the lamp as he stares out of a nearby window. He turns to face his sister, wondering where Kyle is, and Caitlin answers sharply, he left. Michael asks if he's going to come back, and when Caitlin admits that she isn't sure, Michael returns his gaze to the window, a look of worry washing over his face. Outside, the gleaming orange glow of the sun sets slowly behind the clouds, darkness soon to fall upon the town of Darkness Falls.
Very good.
But at the inn, Kyle, very much like Michael, sits under the light of a lamp, Larry seated across from him at a table in the dingy bar. Larry repeats his earlier request, certain that Kyle will survive one drink, and he stands up to approach the bar, asking him if beer is okay. But before he can leave the table, Kyle pulls a prescription pill bottle out of his jacket pocket, reiterating that he can't drink. Larry finally grasps it, exhaling Jesus as he walks over to the bar by himself, which, yeah, that's the dickish part.
Yeah, that's why I'm
that-
like, and watching how this unfolds, I don't like Larry.
From the low-lit pool tables, a patron calls out, "Long time no see, Walsh," as Kyle shifts nervously in his chair. But at the bar, Larry calls out to the bartender, ordering 2 drafts. So yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah.
But seated at the bar, enjoying their beverages, are Raymond Winchester, played by Angus Sampson, and his drinking buddy, played by Andrew Doshie.
Angus Sampson.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tucker.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
I know. I was like, oh my God. I was like, it is him from Insidious.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks so young,
Yeah.
too.
I was looking it up, and I saw that this was only his second ever film appearance.
Okay.
And so it was very early in his career.
Yeah.
And he was also credited as Angus Murray Lincoln Sampson.
Aww.
Thought that was adorable. 4-name.
Yeah.
Hive, rise up. But the bartender, played by Mark Blackmore, asks Larry who his date is, and Larry smugly answers, "You remember Kyle?" This catches Ray's attention, and he sits perplexed, asking Larry if he means Kyle, as in Kyle Walsh. Larry concurs, snagging his 2 glasses from the bartender and thanking him, as he adds that it's Kyle in the flesh.
To me, this feels like a setup.
Mm-hmm. A little bit.
It feels like he brought him here for what is about to happen.
That's some nefarious shit. But I feel like I don't know that would fit. Well, nothing really
Nothing
fits.
fits.
Because I was going to say what his character does for Kyle later.
Yeah.
That's what confuses me. That's why I don't understand the dynamic between Larry and Kyle, because it shifts dramatically.
Yeah.
Because whenever he first walked up at the hospital, I'm like, oh, this is going to be trouble.
Right.
But then he shakes his hand and hugs him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's go to the bar. Let's catch up. And you're like, okay. And then this shit happens. What's about to happen?
Yeah.
But then later, he does something very good for him.
Yeah.
And then he does something terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just that's why I'm like, I don't understand.
The direction.
Right.
Yeah. Larry's always going to keep you guessing.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway.
But feeling the eyes of all the patrons on him, Kyle gets up from the table to leave, just as Larry returns, urging him to sit back down, sweetening the deal with the fact that he brought him a beer. Larry adds that he figured Kyle would like this one. It's a light.
What?
Well, I mean... No, but light is very important to Kyle.
Oh, come on.
That might be me doing it.
Oh, that is clever.
Throw it in his face.
Yeah.
But as he takes a sip of his own beer, he notes that Kyle should have told him that he was coming back. But Kyle just sits fidgeting with a coaster, acknowledging that he didn't know Larry would even still be here. But Larry retorts that Kyle left a lot of shit behind. Kyle raises his eyes to meet Larry's, but at the bar, Ray's drinking buddy asks him what's wrong. And in a bit of pretty bad ADR,
Yeah.
Ray seethes. That's the freak who killed his mother. I have a reason for the bad ADR.
Okay.
You know how I told you that young Kyle got into a fight and stabbed a kid with a protractor?
Yeah.
That was Ray.
Oh,
okay.
So the
That's-
vitriol
yeah.
is I mean, it has been fucking 12 years and
Yeah.
we're all adults now, but more understandable than literally nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand why he would, unless he was like a big fan
Of
of
his
Kyle's
mother.
mom.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why he, unless there was some bad blood previously, which should be established.
Yes.
What Ray does throughout this entire scene, he takes it way too far.
Yeah. And it's the freak thing, too. He keeps saying freak, and it's like, why? Why do you keep saying that? Because murderer, yes.
Uh-huh.
He did something fucked up again. Yeah. But
So they believe.
So they
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
But back at the table, Larry dives into pleasantries, asking Kyle how he's been and what he's been up to. Shadows cross the walls around them, Kyle noticeably uneasy, but he tells Larry that he's currently in the gaming industry.
So did Kyle go to casino school?
He wants
Finally?
to be a casino. Though Larry isn't asked at all what he's been up to, he shares it anyway. Larry Fleischman, attorney at law. Kyle is somewhat shocked to learn that Larry is an attorney, considering that he stole more candy from the Five and Dime than anyone in the history of stealing. Larry adds, "That's why I'm a defense attorney."
Which is funny.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
We were children.
Yeah.
I think that we keep losing sight.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, around 12, I stopped stealing candy.
Candy.
But suddenly, a fuse shorts out in the bar, a few overhead lights shorting out and dipping their sections into darkness. Amidst visions of shadows creeping across the walls, Kyle relives the sight of his mother, dead on his bedroom floor, as Larry's voice appears warped and echoey around him. He asks, "Come on, Kyle, give. What are you really doing back here?" But Kyle snaps back to reality when a woman across the bar, played by Rain Guest, has a beer spilled all over her, rising with ire from her table.
Just the fucking ice bucket challenge?
Yeah.
Well, that was like a gallon.
I didn't understand what this had to do here. Like, why did we need this put there?
The jury's still out.
Yeah.
Well, in a previous draft.
I was about to say,
No.
what version did that make sense in?
But Kyle states simply that he came here to try to help Michael. But Larry counters that Kyle doesn't look like he could help anyone right now. Though he does ask Kyle, how did you get over it? I mean, you did get over it, right? Larry leans back confidently in his chair, remarking that Caitlin has a whole new life now. But he says, this whole thing with Mikey. But images begin to swirl in Kyle's mind's eye. The porcelain mask that hovered above his bed in the dark. The face that inspired the frightful drawings that line the walls of his home. But Kyle's eyes open wide, vexed by the visions, just as the towering Ray saunters over to their table, leaning down to face Kyle as he badgers, "What the hell are you doing back here, freak?" He bats the lamp above them, the beaming light swinging back and forth as he adds, "I thought they locked you up for killing your mama." The camera arcs around them as Kyle tells the taller man that he doesn't want any trouble. But Ray just scoffs, reaching for Kyle's glass of beer and toasting him before taking a sip.
Joke's on you. I didn't even want that beer.
Drink up, buddy. But Ray isn't content with just drinking the beer. And after he's had his fill, he pours the contents of the glass onto Kyle. Kyle then stands from his seat, soaked in beer, but attempts to defuse the situation. Ray, however, seizes Kyle's jacket in his furious fists, hurling threats of abuse in a moment of even more terrible ADR.
Yes.
This made me laugh out loud because his voice doesn't even match.
Yeah.
When he walks up, he's like, "I thought they put you in," like the deep.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Come on, you chicken shit." It's like, who did that?
I don't know.
What is that?
But he hurls Kyle against a pool table, growling for him to take a shot. But Kyle just walks away, pushing past a pool player to exit the bar entirely. One lone voice, potentially Larry's, urges Ray to leave Kyle alone. But all the other patrons applaud the bully's behavior.
We're applauding this?
Yeah. That's what I don't understand. Larry's fucking giving me the third degree while I came over here. Why are you here? You can't be here.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to move in on my girl. Then this dude comes over here, drinks my beer, throws it on me. Then he's roughing me up.
Nothing he's saying is matching his mouth. It's really fucking creeping me out.
It's like, I know I'm seeing shit. This is a bit much.
No, but it's too much.
Yeah.
But outside on the patio, Kyle brushes at his beer-soaked clothing with his hands before approaching the wooden railing of the porch. He holds his pill bottle clenched in his fist, but appears startled when the floorboards begin to creak nearby. Puzzled, Kyle peers around, inching his way closer to the railing, when suddenly he is promptly tackled by Ray, the two men sailing over the side of the porch and tumbling down a tall tree-covered hill into the darkness below.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
This is only what you do if 12 years ago this guy stabbed you with a protractor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, calm down.
Yeah.
One might say not even that.
Or if that was your mom too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's no point in you to be this mad.
That's fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
It's precarious.
For you as well.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. But Kyle lands at the bottom with a stern thud, Ray immediately gaining the upper hand as Kyle reaches for a flashlight that fell out of his pocket. He switches it on, and Kyle is caught not only in its small beam, but in the firm grasp of Ray, who mounts him, landing a powerful punch with an absurd, "Eat this!" Kyle proceeds to get his ass kicked for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. He's having a bad night.
He is.
He really is.
Yeah.
Who says he can't go home? But when an eerie hiss emanates from within the trees, the surrounding area suddenly dips deeper into darkness, and Kyle roars a warrior's cry, elbowing Ray in the jaw and turning the tables on his tormentor, screaming wildly as he rains blows down upon him. Ray groans, collecting himself as Kyle reaches for his flashlight, but a look of fear finally finds Ray as he spies something just above them. A figure, draped all in black, the low light of the area glinting off of the smoothness of its face as it floats behind the branches of a tall tree. Ray can't make heads or tails of it, but Kyle isn't waiting around, and with Ray properly subdued, he races off, the bully bellowing from the ground, "Keep running, you freak!"
So he got over that quick.
Yeah.
Kyle does run, breathlessly traipsing through the trees in terror until he reaches the parking lot of the inn. Ray still rages from a distance. "I'll find you! I'm gonna kick your ass, Walsh!" He finally reaches his feet, catching his breath as he warns, "These are my woods."
Are they?
These are yours.
It's like a lot has happened in 12 years.
Ray owns the woods now.
That's the first thing I should probably tell you. But he adds, "Nobody messes with me." But just as he turns around, the swift and sinister shadow of Matilda charges right for him through the air, clutching him and carrying him off as he screams.
I'm just like, great, I'm about to get blamed for something else.
Yeah.
But moments later, a barrage of flashlights beam into the night through the trees, a proper search party of concerned patrons and police entering Ray's woods to search for him and Kyle. At the front of the pack is Larry, with Officer Matt Henry, played by Sullivan Stapleton.
Sullivan Stapleton. He's got a credit in The Hunter from 2011, Gangster Squad from 2013, and 300 Rise of an Empire from 2014.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Larry is certain that they couldn't have made it out this far, but when Ray's screams echo through the trees, the search party aim their flashlights in the direction of the sound. Matt calls out to Ray, to Kyle, but his only answer is the rustling of branches. He orders Officer Batten, played by Andrew Bailey, to take control of the others and spread them out to search more effectively, but Larry fearfully insists that he's just going to stay here with Matt. When a chittering sound is heard, Larry points his small flashlight over to where he heard it, with Matt creeping forward to investigate alone. Arcing his flashlight over the underbrush, he gets a little spooked when Larry steps forward behind him. But as Matt ventures onward, Larry realizes that the whole splitting up thing is kind of stupid. And that is true 100% of the time.
Yes.
But now, all alone, Larry's shaky voice repeats, "You're a grown man. You're completely safe. You're a grown man. You're completely safe." I will say this is the second time and not the last time that a character suddenly has a mantra. I don't know why it happens so often in this film, but it's kind of irritating. But out of nowhere, something massive drops down from above, crushing Larry to the forest floor. With limited mobility, Larry points his flashlight over his shoulder to discover that it's Ray's body pinning him to the ground. A slash across the brute's face, and his eyes frozen forever in wide terror. Larry howls for someone to get him off of him, screaming to anyone who will listen that he's found Ray.
I think Ray found you.
Yeah.
But back at St. Francis Hospital, Caitlin flips through a book of fables, surveying a drawing of a mother clutching her child to her, both of their faces full of fear. The text at the side reads, "Light will spell her doom and death. Brightest flame engulfed her whole, setting free her wicked soul." WHOLE.
I just am like, first of all, I don't think this is what he needs right now.
Yeah.
Secondly, is that about her?
I don't know. If it's because it's too close.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little confused because we are getting this like fairy tale book or whatever, and the Tooth Fairy is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't.
And maybe it is a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It's clearly, but it just doesn't fit kind of narratively, like for it to be in this book because it was this. printed in darkness. I don't know. I'm just confused.
Or was there a Tooth Fairy before this Tooth Fairy where they found that out?
That was also evil? I mean, I don't know. It does fit very well, and it should honestly give... She should be in charge of everything when it comes to that point.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, she should.
But she really is not.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But we see this poetic line depicted. A witchy wisp of a woman caught in a beam of light, shrieking as she withers away, her shadow breaking apart behind her. Caitlin closes the book, holding it to her chest, with Michael fast asleep behind her under the light of his lamp. She excuses herself to a sink at the other side of the room, giving her reflection an inspection in the mirror above it, before splashing her face with cold water. She dips down to blot her skin with a towel, but when she raises her head again, Kyle stands behind her in the doorway, his reflection caught in the mirror. She gasps at the sight of him, Kyle covered in dirt and clutching his head as he offers a sheepish, "Hey, cat."
This is wild after what he's just seen and been through.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
true.
he's remarkably calm.
And he walked all the way back here?
He walked all the way back here, and he's not like, I fucking told you she was real. I just told you she fucking killed Ray. Like, he's just like, hey, cat.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cute.
Well, he's lucky he's not fucking coughing up blood.
Yeah, no shit.
After that,
Yeah, God damn, dude.
I'm just like, were these, like, is this in the right order? Like, I just feel like the stakes should be a little higher. Like, things should be a little bit more intense now.
Right.
But Caitlin asks what happened to him, and Kyle just shrugs it off as a coming home party.
That's if you just got jumped.
Yeah.
You saw Matilda Dixon in the woods.
Well, she lives here. It's coming home.
In Ray's woods. And she snatched him up.
Yeah. Well, but he didn't see that. He was already at the end parking lot.
I don't care.
Yeah, but he
But he
something.
did. He heard it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Kyle takes pained steps over to a nearby bed, sitting down at the edge of it with Caitlin's help. Thoughtful piano plays in the score as Caitlin tends to Kyle's wounds. I do want to mention she said something that cracked me the fuck up before she started tending to those wounds. She said, I got to try to get some of this gravel out of your scalp. And just the specificity.
That's a fucking hilarious line.
But she goes after it with a tweezer, asking Kyle how this happened. When he turns away instead of answering, Caitlin abandons this line of questioning. She shifts focus, asking instead, how about you tell me about the last 12 years of your life in 25 words or less? I feel the question she should be asking is, where's Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who maybe my betrothed? I don't know.
Yeah, because they went out together.
Yeah.
And he comes back all beat up. He's like, oh, Larry was beaten to death.
We just completely don't even ask.
Don't even answer at all.
Can you get this gravel out of my scalp?
I might be able to think clearer without this.
That's crazy.
But Kyle gives a proper answer. He went to a foster home, and then they moved out west to Las Vegas, and now he works in a casino. As Caitlin picks at the gravel in Kyle's scalp, he asks if he's reached the 25 words yet. When prompted to keep going, Kyle finally asks the real question that's clearly been lingering in his mind since he saw them together. Are you and Larry going out? Caitlin wonders why he's asking, and before he can give a proper answer, she tears a large piece of gravel free from his skin, leaving Kyle wincing in pain. But Caitlin confides that she doesn't know what she's doing wrong, and this prompts Kyle to turn to face her, sternly ordering her not to give Michael any more tests. Caitlin is confused, but Kyle continues that they stuck him with every needle known to man, gave him more Rorschachs than he could ever count, and it didn't do a goddamn thing. He urges her not to let that happen to Michael. But suddenly, from the hall, Officer Matt, flanked by Officer Batten, calls out, Kyle Walsh, you're going to have to come with us.
He does know he doesn't have to say his first and last each time, right? 'Cause he never just calls him Kyle.
No.
Well, that's how you do an official arrest on TV. Kyle accepts this, and we cut to the police cruiser arriving outside of the Darkness Falls Police Department.
But why can't you say, Kat, I've been here with her for a little bit. You can check the time. I couldn't have done this to this dude and then ran over here in 2 minutes.
Well, I love that it's like, he's not even like, well, on what grounds? He's like, no, yeah, I can.
Yeah. But
He's like, here are my wrists.
it's just too easy. You're just going with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand.
But I mean, it does look real bad.
It does.
But inside, we find Matt and his father, Captain Henry, between glass-walled halls, the son asking his elder if he's ever seen anything like this before. Henry, poring over a folder filled with files, remarks, "In this town, you'd be surprised." But Henry enters the interrogation room where Kyle sits alone at a table, the camera panning across his opened bag that rests on the other side of the room, flashlight after flashlight busting out of it, along with several bottles of prescription pills at its side. Leaning over the edge of the table, Henry asks, "What's with all the flashlights? You afraid of the dark?" Kyle admits that he is, but he says that if Henry knew why, he would think he was crazy. This inspires Henry to snag Kyle's prescriptions, setting them down in front of him one by one as he names them off. Klonopin, Darvocet, and the third one, Henry can't even pronounce. But he says that the doctor tells him that half of these are antipsychotics. Henry admits that he doesn't know much about medicine. He's no big city lawyer.
Yeah.
The vibe is absurd. But he says that he would think if a man is taking antipsychotics, he might have a tendency to become, well, psychotic.
Sorry for taking medication that was prescribed to me.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry
My
about
bad.
that. Oopsie whoopsie. It's like, dude, fuck off.
My name's on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
When Kyle doesn't have an answer for this, Henry breaks the news to him. Ray's dead. This surprises Kyle, who repeats the captain's words interrogatively. But Henry adds the kicker as the camera presses in on Kyle. He thinks that Kyle had something to do with it. Kyle swears that he didn't kill Ray, that he didn't do this, saying that he's certain that there must have been, before he trails off and he admits that he doesn't know. But back in the offices, Caitlin sits across from Matt at his desk, insisting with certainty that Kyle didn't kill Ray. Matt isn't so sure, though, wondering how she can be, considering that she hasn't seen Kyle in 12 years. But Caitlin is certain, and she asserts that Kyle is a good man. Matt reminds her that Kyle has been a ward of the state, but Caitlin counters that he came back to help Michael. This, to me, I'm like, what the fuck does him being a ward of the state have to do with anything as far as...
Nothing.
Yeah.
You know? But Matt retorts that Kyle was in a mental hospital for 9 years, and he states that Kyle is a dangerous guy.
So the foster family story was
it bullshit?
true or
Yeah.
no?
I don't know. At least Matt seems to have proof of him being in a mental hospital for 9 years. I don't see how that's possible, whether it was before or after Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know. And Caitlin's just like, Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
why why was the audience given both if it's not going to become a point of, I don't know. Whatever.
Or if it was he moved in with the foster family, they moved to Vegas, something happened, he had to go back, something. Then it's like, oh, so you've had a episode or something happened before that you had to go back, or they thought a scare or something. Maybe that would be a like, okay, you came back into town, somebody died, it's you.
Well, what doesn't make sense to me is so we see him the morning after.
Right.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's immediately taken into the care of a doctor.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, okay, so that's where the 9 years starts.
Right.
Okay.
But there's no way that kid was 9 years old, and so he would be an adult by the time his in the mental hospital is finished.
Yeah.
So how could he go live with the foster? Like, none of this makes any sense.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that Kyle is not telling the truth, but we don't.
No.
There is no closure, no even exploration of that.
No.
Caitlin just sits despondent, looking away from Matt as her eyes go glassy. But in the interrogation room, Henry reveals the file that was sent over to him from the state hospital about Kyle, claiming that it's 10 feet long. And that must have been expedited up the ass because they didn't know that he was going to...
No.
They're still printing it out as I speak. But Henry notes that Kyle spent a lot of time there, recounting his diagnoses. Major dissociative syndrome, which is not a real diagnosis, by the way. Just
It isn't Darkness Falls.
Yeah.
He's not a big city lawyer.
but also night terrors. He then drops a photograph from the scene of Ray's death, Ray's pale face staring lifelessly into the trees, and he adds, sociopathic tendencies, 3 suicide attempts. Kyle insists that he didn't do this, as the photographs pile up in front of him, each more grisly than the last, and we peer up at Kyle through the table as he winces.
I feel like setting aside what happened to his mother, because that is not proven that he did it.
Right.
Because we saw with our own eyeballs that he did not do that.
Right.
The things that he's rattling off, he has not been violent with anyone but himself.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is not the zhuzh that you think it is. It's not for me. If I'm on this jury, that didn't prove anything to me.
No, it didn't. And again, still, like I said, there's no way he did what they're saying he did, and then where they found him at.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way.
No.
Nobody. He's not saying anything.
And it being presented this way is kind of confusing, considering all the things that we know and the things that they have discussed already.
Yeah.
So that I think this is a good time to tell you as far as how much the film changed between these reshoots.
Okay.
In the first portion of the production of the film, Kyle is an ambiguous character.
Okay.
And we as the audience are not supposed to know if he did this, if he killed his mother or not.
Okay.
And there's this big psychological element that is there that where Kyle is basically a red herring for half of the film until we learn that the Tooth Fairy is real.
I like that a lot better.
Yeah. But then the reshoots happened. And Kyle, in this version, is in denial over whether the Tooth Fairy exists or not.
Sometimes.
But then more reshoots happen, and Kyle 100% believes in the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, I almost thought you were going to say he is the Tooth Fairy.
No.
And now.
Honestly, that's a really cool name for a serial killer.
Yeah.
But the thing is elements of each of these versions of the film still exist in the final cut.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we had talked about it earlier where I said the character of Kyle Walsh and unfortunately the performance of Chaney Clay feels a little all over the place.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 versions of him in this film still.
That's
that's the problem. And you feel that.
Yeah.
Because there's so many parts where you're like, wait, what the hell? Like, what is going on?
Man, they did him dirty.
Yeah. It's really unfair.
And I'm a big fan of psychological horror and ambiguity. I think that would have been a really cool route to take in terms of telling this story.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, well, did he do that to his mom?
Yeah.
Especially if we're presented with this, quote unquote troubled child at the beginning that's stabbing people with fucking protractors and everybody has this really visceral and negative reaction to him coming back to this town. That it's just a better story, I think.
Having that, you don't have to make your fucking credits 11 minutes long. That fills in the gap.
Yes.
That's
the
true.
story.
And it
you
did.
have story.
It did, and that's the thing that they even talked about. They were like, the amount of things we had to cut, we had no choice but to make the credits this long.
I just don't understand.
It's
Not at all.
absurd. And it is, and I think the only thing that would suck a little bit is I think that we might have to lose a little bit of the really cool opening of the film.
Right.
Because they can't be like, no, the Tooth Fairy is real.
Well, flashback. That could be a flashback, in the last half.
Yeah, something.
True, like his memory of
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
He's
Instead
like,
of
let me tell you what really happened or whatever. Like, we can still have that.
Just not the cold open.
Just not the cold open.
But yeah, I was pretty disappointed because any film that kind of loses that ambiguity or that cool psychological element, it's worse for it.
Yeah, it just here, you could feel it really bad.
Yeah.
Well, because any time that you stop and kind of take inventory of what's going on, you're like, what the hell? Like, all the motivations seem weird. Even
Yes,
Kyle
yeah.
seems weird. Like,
People's reactions.
people's
Yes.
reactions to him and to the situation. Like, it really, they left too many kind of like straggler pieces of abandoned stories.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then having to try to clean things up with the ADR.
Yeah,
Really.
maybe there would have been less of that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, because in the other version, whenever him and Ray tumble into the forest floor,
Yeah.
Ray never sees the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, the one he looks up and sees
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
And Kyle just starts losing his mind. He beats the shit out of Ray and leaves him there. And then maybe it is more of a gut punch where they're like, Ray's dead.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, well, what the fuck happened to Ray?
Yeah, because we didn't see
Because
anything.
we didn't kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like, it is not, when he's like, Ray's dead, it's like, no, yeah, I know.
Yeah. We saw him get speared by Goldberg in the fucking... On the positive side, I did really like this shot that we see of Kyle looking down at the files,
Yeah.
peering up through this table that is now glass, so we can see it from the perspective like that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite camera tricks, and it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
I love when films do it, though. But Henry orders Kyle not to turn away, accusing him of not only killing Ray, but his mother, too. Henry's voice echoes around Kyle as his pupils constrict, quick flashes of his mother's murder playing before his mind's eye, Matilda's ghostly frame hovering above her, 3 symmetrical slashes carved in Margaret's cheek as her unblinking eye peers at him from the floor of his bedroom. When Kyle returns to himself, he utters the smartest thing that he said all day. I need to call my lawyer.
Yeah, you should have done that immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is another thing, a remnant of another version of the film, because him seeing the 3 scratches on Ray's face in the photographs,
Right.
this is what tips him off to say, oh, the Tooth Fairy was absolutely 100% real. That's what I saw on my mother's face.
Okay.
And so this is where his denial in that version of the film goes out the window.
Yeah.
Mm.
But in the offices, Caitlin has finally had enough of Matt's bullshit, gathering her jacket to leave, and as she puts it on, Matt assures her that they'll be in touch. Before she can make a proper exit, though, Kyle is led down the hall behind her by Captain Henry, and when he calls out to her, Caitlin flatly intones, I have to get back to Michael at the hospital. This is dubbed.
Wow.
And firstly, no anything for him at all.
No.
Yeah.
And the fucked up thing is that, again, and I know it's probably getting annoying at this point, but other versions of the film, she tells him because she believes Matt.
Yeah.
And she says, you stay away from me and my brother.
Oh.
And that's how that
Yeah.
scene ends. And that's why Kyle turns away all despondent.
Yeah, because here it's very flat. And
Yes.
it sounds fucked up. I was like, what are you
Yeah.
You're just leaving me here?
No word, no nothing.
I came to help you.
That's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah.
She's got to return some videotapes.
But that's literally all before she leaves. In an awkward cut, Henry barks, Matt! And Matt has suddenly taken the reins of Kyle's cuffs and marches him over to a holding cell adjacent to the officers' desks. So again, obviously, clearly ADR.
Yeah.
But the thing is during Caitlin's talk with Matt at the desk, there's a woman behind them crying at another officer's desk talking to him.
Okay.
That's Ray's widow.
Oh.
And so there's a deleted portion between Captain Henry handing Kyle off to Matt and Matt taking him to the cell where Ray's widow fucking charges him
Oh.
and has to be pulled away.
Yeah.
Don't know why that's not in here.
Yeah.
The movie was getting too long. They had to
74 minutes.
had to shave some stuff off.
The credits won't fit.
We need our 11-minute credits.
But as he shoves Kyle into the cell, Matt mocks, keep working on your crap story. Unlocking his cuffs, Matt adds that he hopes that Kyle does have a good lawyer. A bright light beams above Kyle as he takes a seat on the small bench inside of the cell. But Caitlin arrives back at the hospital, the crickets chirping around her as she parks her car, shutting it off. Through her tears, Caitlin repeats to herself, I can handle this. I can handle this. I told you, everyone has a fucking mantra in this film.
You know, as an affirmations girly, I appreciate it. Let's normalize everyone doing this.
But with a loud shriek, an adorable black cat launches onto the hood of Caitlin's car, scaring the absolute shit out of her in a very cliche jump scare.
Yeah.
I was like, are you serious?
And once again, this is another thing that was cut out of the film.
Okay.
Because there is supposed to be apparently some nurse who is caring for all of these cats that live outside of the hospital, and they apparently find her dead and beginning to be eaten by these cats that live here.
What?
So this is something that was supposed to lead to something else, but now it's just a cliche jump scare.
Yeah.
It's just a side story.
Yeah. Well,
It's like, this has nothing to do with the two things.
no.
But Caitlin snags a small flashlight from her dashboard, switching it on. Possibly given to her by Kyle? I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But inside Michael's hospital room, we glide over empty beds and flickering lights to find Michael tossing and turning in his bed, fast asleep. But a pained groan suddenly emanates from above him as he rests beneath the light of his overhead lamp. Caitlin makes her way down the hall, the camera floating to meet her, but she picks up her pace when she hears Nurse Lauren knocking on the bathroom door adjacent to Michael's hospital room. Once Caitlin enters the room, she finds items scattered across the floor and Michael's bed to be empty. She rushes over to the locked bathroom door, taking over for Lauren and urging her to go call security as she tries to reach her brother. She wrenches at the doorknob, slapping her palm against the door, calling out for Michael and asking if he can hear her. But when she receives no response, the score grows tense as she begins to bash the door with her shoulder. When we see that it's locked from the other side, which was very obvious. I don't know why this insert shot is here. It feels like she would just open the door otherwise. But Caitlin snags a fire extinguisher from the wall next to her and smashes it against the lock and the doorknob, finally breaking into the room. Once inside, she finds Michael in the brightly lit bathroom, cowered in the corner behind a white shower curtain, which is smeared red with his blood.
Now you've got a lawsuit on your hands.
Yeah. One thing I will say, there's the parallel between him and Kyle.
At the beginning, yeah.
But Michael sits in a heap against the tiled wall, resting within the small beam of a flashlight, a wound opened in his already injured arm. He sits there, barely breathing, as Caitlin leans down to cradle him in her arms, promising that it's okay as he seems to stir. Lauren then returns, shaking her head in disbelief and concern, as Michael weakly whispers in Caitlin's arms, "She's going to get me."
I feel like everyone, it's an underreaction all the way around.
Oh, yeah.
No, it is.
Like, Caitlin's just like,
This shit
come
again?
here. Yeah.
Well,
I'm like,
even the nurse
Yes!
backs out of the doorway.
Yeah.
I thought you were a nurse. Are you not going to help the boy?
So I got other patients.
Yeah.
But we cut to the next morning, which honestly shocked me. I don't know why I remembered this film taking place over the course of one night.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
So when I saw the sunlight, I was like, oh, dude, I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess everything's fine.
Yeah.
Roll credits. Roll long ass credits.
Yes.
But Caitlin sits in a consult with Dr. Travis, played by Peter Curtin. Great name, great doctor. I trust him implicitly.
Yeah.
With Dr. Murphy standing behind her over her shoulder, Caitlin listens intently as Travis tells her that Michael is suffering from a highly specialized form of pavor nocturnus, otherwise known as night terrors. It's like, we know you went to school.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
And didn't we already do this earlier?
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah.
Nyctophobia.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But he explains that because of his consistent lack of sleep, he suffered a psychotic break. And once that break occurs, the subject can no longer discern what is real and what isn't. And eventually, they begin to manifest a response. Caitlin wonders what that means exactly, And Travis answers that a patient may hurt themselves because they believe that what they dream is real. And in Michael's case, he believes that something is after him, and he insists that Michael's self-inflicted wounds are consistent with this fantasy. My question, what did he do it with?
Yeah.
Where, how, when?
Yeah.
You found nothing except a bloody boy in the bathroom.
No, this reminds me of Gothica.
Yeah.
We don't know how she did it, but clearly she did it. There is a lot of like Nightmare on Elm Street here to me
I
as well.
felt that.
There's some later too.
Yeah.
But Travis offers some good news. There is a procedure that they can perform in this hospital that has had an overwhelming success rate. Michael will be placed in a sensory deprivation chamber where he'll face his fears and he'll realize that there's nothing at all to be afraid of.
So just a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
First of all, I will take one of those. Thank you very much. Secondly, that's not a procedure.
No.
And I understand the merits of like exposure therapy and things like that, but I don't think this is the route here.
Yeah.
This sounds like a horrible, traumatizing idea. Even if the doctor believes their version of it, and this is all Michael, and he is having a psychotic break because he's not sleeping, because he's afraid of the dark. So let's throw him in a dark tank. And sensory deprivation, like your mind is going to go places, and his mind is not sound.
Yeah.
If this is what the doctors are thinking, all of this is a really horrific and terrible idea.
Yeah.
To me,
Shouldn't the first step be Michael needs to sleep?
getting him some sleep. Yeah.
And then maybe we can figure things out after he's rested?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand the putting him in complete darkness. You haven't even tried to let him sleep in the light.
No.
Like, just turn on the light and let him...
He had fallen asleep.
Yeah.
And one of you said that earlier. You're like, has anyone tried just turning on all the lights and letting this boy fucking sleep?
Let him just get some sleep and then, like, okay, talk to us now.
Yes.
Watch him. Just watch him. We're going to watch him, make sure the lights never go off. How long has he been asleep? 10 hours? Right, wake him up now.
Yes, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just across the board a horrible idea.
Caitlin appears worried at this idea, reminding Travis that Michael hates the dark, and Murphy interjects, insisting that's the point.
It's like we're going to make his brain go to some weird places.
We are going to scare the shit out of him.
until he passes out and falls into a deep, restful sleep.
Caitlin mulls it over for a moment before asking if there's any other alternative to this treatment, and Travis supposes that they would try aggressive medication coupled with counseling, but he reminds her that there are no guarantees, supposing that in the meantime, Michael might hurt himself more successfully.
So let's put him in that box.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
And now you're kind of using fear as a tactic to persuade Caitlin to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we could get him counseling, but he's probably just going to get worse. It's like, what?
Yeah,
I think that Dr. Travis is in the pocket of big box.
yeah, he's getting paid.
Big, scary box.
Big tank.
Yeah. But we cut back to the police station. Matt finding the proper key on his massive key ring to unlock Kyle's cell, reluctantly letting him out. As he crosses the rows of desks, Kyle clutches his empty bag, asking Matt where his flashlights are, only to be answered coldly. Lab's not done with it.
Some flashlights?
I don't know. What's the point?
I know. What?
Clearly, he beat Ray to death with all of those flashlights.
As he storms out of the office, Kyle follows behind him, making his way toward the exit and walking right past Larry, who adjusts his glasses in annoyance, suggesting that the words that Kyle is looking for are thank you.
Why the hell would he do this?
Yeah.
Help him out of prison?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or prison.
Well,
Let's calm down. Calm down.
Take him off of death row.
I'm raising the stakes.
But why?
I don't know.
Everything that we've known of him.
Yeah, what he said.
No idea.
He would not be bailing him out.
No.
Outside, Kyle keeps a steady stride, Larry calling out for him to wait up as they reach the sidewalk outside of the police station. Larry whines that he's having a bad day. He had a dead guy fall on top of him.
Oh.
Well, I mean, that's shitty. That sucks.
Yeah, it is. But
Yeah, he was the real victim.
He demands to know where Kyle is going, forced to follow as Kyle enters Barney's sporting goods and hardware store. In quick cuts from various angles, Kyle assembles a new arsenal of flashlights, checking their batteries and the power of their beams as he arranges them in front of a clerk played by Joshua Parnell. But the clerk looks Kyle up and down as he loads his newly purchased protection into his bag, and attempting to make another sale, the clerk offers Kyle another kind of protection, a pistol.
Yeah, I felt some type of way about him offering it like an upcharge. Like, do you want cheese on your eggs? I'm like, it's a pistol?
well, he just bought $300 worth of fucking flashlights.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, why not? You know what the hell?
It's like nobody was buying those.
No.
Yeah. He's just shooting a shot.
Yeah. The clerk sinks his key into the glass showcase, Larry refusing the gun on Kyle's behalf before walking toward the rifles at the other end of the store. But when the clerk gets a phone call and steps away to answer it, Kyle eyes the pistol beneath the glass and the key resting in the lock.
This guy shouldn't work here.
Yeah.
It's like, excuse me.
Now, don't take anything.
But Larry, none the wiser, reaches his finger for the trigger of one of the rifles, startled when it clicks dry. So, according to the commentary, the producers really, really wanted, over the course of the film, for Kyle to accumulate all of the necessary components to build himself a flamethrower. And going to this shop would be where he gets the last bit of materials that he needs. I'm glad they didn't fucking do that.
Why?
I don't know.
Yeah, what is the flamethrower? What? Huh?
The cartoony fucking ending of this film.
Yeah.
Of what it could have been. I'm glad.
It's just a weird goal
Oh,
to have.
yeah. So we got the cats eating a nurse.
Yeah.
Now we've got flamethrowers.
Right. Now he's McCready.
We cut some things that couldn't have been cut, but clearly there was a little fat to trim.
Yes, yeah.
But outside, the gleaming sun sets behind distant mountains as the men exit the store. Larry wonders what Kyle plans to do next, and Kyle just demands that Larry give him a ride. Annoyed, Larry reminds Kyle that he was released into his custody, and as they reach his car parked across the street, Kyle states that it's 5:35 p.m. and the sun sets in 20 minutes. That means Larry has 20 minutes to get him to the hospital.
Where do they live?
Yeah, damn.
I don't know, fucking Alaska.
I was like, is this 30 days of night?
I don't know.
What the hell?
And I don't understand Larry's annoyance because he's not running away.
No.
He's like, drive me there. You're still a part of this.
Yeah.
Why did you help me?
Yeah.
Why did you get me out?
In the hospital, the camera pulls back from a large sensory deprivation chamber, which is absolutely just an MRI machine.
Yes.
This is another change.
Oh.
In the screenplay, it was Michael just getting an MRI.
Yeah.
And the producers were like, no, it's got to be scarier. Make it a sensory deprivation chamber.
That's not a sensory.
Yeah.
That's not it.
No, and they even go through the protocol of what you would do before an MRI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't they injecting him and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
That's why I was so confused.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Because I'm like, is he getting an MRI before you take him to the tank?
Like, we gotta make sure
He's healthy.
Yeah.
Before we scare the shit out of him.
Yeah.
He's got a full day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's no sense to me at all.
Nope. But Murphy stands in front of Caitlin, who sits nervously in the waiting room, assuring her that they're almost set up and they'll be ready for Michael in about 15 minutes. Caitlin wonders where Dr. Travis is, dismayed to learn that he had to get back upstate and that Murphy alone will be in charge of Michael's treatment.
I don't give a fuck about it.
No, I don't know why this matters.
Why did we even introduce him?
I really trusted him. Did they have him for one day? Like,
Yeah, that was
I
it.
don't understand. It's like in Dr. Kidkill. Where did he go?
the man who suggested this terrible treatment.
Oh, he had to leave.
Yeah. But we hover above Larry's car on a curved road surrounded by trees. The Shining reference?
Okay, take a shot.
Inside the car, Larry berates Kyle, wondering why he had to come back, asking if he knows how long he's been trying to get through to Caitlin. Larry laments that, first of all, Michael is always there, and then the ghost. Kyle peers nervously at the sun setting behind them through the back window, but he's startled by Larry's choice of words, asking, "The ghost?" Larry explains, "You, man." He recounts that nobody in this town had a chance with Caitlin because she couldn't get Kyle out of her head. He was all she could ever think about.
She was also like 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think at some point her not wanting to date you is more about you than
Yeah.
it's about it. Than
Yeah.
it's about a boy that she kissed one time when she was 12.
Feels like a Millhouse situation.
Feels like a Millhouse situation. And that, it happens.
Yeah.
Just move on. Like, I don't know what to
You've had 12 years.
Which is, even just thinking about that is weird, because that's trauma. She just left that house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
true.
happened.
And he's like, oh my God, I want to date you though. Get over it.
The score grows ominous as Kyle clutches a flashlight in his hand, checking his watch as the world begins to grow darker around them. Tension rises at the hospital, Murphy handing Caitlin consent and release of liability forms for her brother's treatment. She wipes her tears to get a clearer look at them on the clipboard. As Murphy hands Caitlin a pen, he assures her that everything will be fine. But back in the car, as they continue traveling down a long road, Kyle finally asks, "Larry, where are you taking me?" He realizes that this isn't the way to the hospital. Larry reveals that he's not taking him to the hospital, insisting that Kyle needs to lay low until the judge gets back.
What?
He's like, "Are you really my lawyer?"
But
Yeah.
he didn't break him out.
No.
Like, you're allowed to be out here.
Yeah.
And we've been driving for 20 minutes. You're barely saying something now.
Honestly.
It's like, wait, where are we?
This is just the open road.
Yeah.
Kyle reiterates that he just wants to help Michael, but Larry assures him that Michael is going to be just fine. They're putting him in a sensory deprivation tank. They're going to shut the lights out and show him that there's nothing to be scared of. This is all Kyle needs to hear, fear finding him firmly as he clutches Larry's sleeve, confirming, "They're going to put him in the dark?" Larry amends this. They're going to fix him, stop him from becoming the next Kyle Walsh.
That was mean.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But I don't understand anybody's motivation for anything.
No.
Why? And that's what Nate was saying. Why break him out of jail at all? Well, not break
Break
him.
What?
Why did you break him out of prison?
You bailed him out. You're his attorney. Why?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Leave him there if you're so worried about him getting involved.
Yeah. You know where he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It's very like he needed to get him out to move the story along.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would even make sense if Caitlin did it.
Right.
And she was like, I'm the one that brought you back. Like, fuck off.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're free. Just leave or whatever. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
And the narrative they're trying to push about how bad he is, we haven't seen anything else other than what happened to him when he was a kid. That was it.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to say, like, we don't want Michael to end up like you,
Mm-hmm.
dude, you're doing all kinds of crazy shit to him over there in the hospital. And it's like, you think that's still not going to affect him?
Yeah.
No, we're going to put him in a tank and fuck his brain up.
What the hell?
Well, we don't need you around.
Are you a real doctor?
I don't think so. He left.
Yeah. And, honestly, it would make a lot more sense if he doesn't get put in the cell at all, because what cause do they even have to hold him other than suspicion?
Yeah.
That
So,
was my question.
Just say you can't leave town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he wasn't charged with anything. So I know they can keep you, I think, for like 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And what did the lawyer even do? Don't hold him?
Who is his lawyer?
Larry.
No, dude. No,
Yeah.
he simply can't be his lawyer.
But in the hospital halls, we travel beneath the long rows of bright lights, Michael staring up at them as he's wheeled toward the sensory deprivation room. Caitlin follows at his side, promising that he's going to be okay, and that she'll be watching him from the other room. But Michael intones that if they put him in the dark, she'll get him. Caitlin just reassures her brother, insisting that it'll all be over soon. But as they cross through the double doors, a shadow overtakes Michael, hovering over him forebodingly. It's like nobody else sees that. Everybody's distracted, I guess. But it is pitch black outside now. Larry's headlights beaming into the evening through the trees as they pass a road sign reading, "You are now leaving Darkness Falls."
Remember the B Sharps episode? They just dropped Wiggum off in the woods.
Yeah.
This is his plan.
Is this what he's doing?
No! Kyle demands for Larry to turn this car around now, but Larry stares sternly ahead without a word. This is when Kyle reaches into his belt for his stolen pistol, pulling the hammer back as he points it directly at Larry's face.
My note right before that was just threaten him with the gun that we all know you stole.
Yeah.
Just get it over with.
Mm-hmm. But in another poor case of ADR, Kyle orders Larry to take him to Michael. His mouth looks like it's just like making a whining noise.
Yeah.
It's just bad. But Larry asks what will happen if he doesn't turn the car around. And before Kyle can follow through with a proper threat, a massive shadow descends upon the men, obscuring Larry's entire windshield and causing them both to scream. Larry loses control of the car, crashing right into a tree and sending the apparently seat-beltless Kyle crashing right through the windshield and launching him over the hood of the car.
God damn, that was funny.
I couldn't believe my eyes. He collects himself carefully in the glow of Larry's one remaining headlight. I do have it on good authority that they can still drive it home.
Yes.
But Larry lifts his head from the steering wheel, darkness all around him as he peers through his broken and crooked glasses, reaching for the outside door handle, unable to wrench his door open and clutching a tree branch instead. As Kyle sits up coughing on the ground, eerie sounds abound all around the men, Larry taking notice of them and realizing that they're coming from right above him. Kyle warns, "Larry, don't look at her!" But Larry, frozen in terror, is too preoccupied to heed this warning, and from the tall trees descends Matilda, and in a flash of tattered black clothing, her eyes solemn behind her porcelain mask, she swoops upon Larry, seizing his wrist with a screech and tearing him clumsily through the car window and into the treetops. This is an homage to Alien, by the way.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And him clocking his head on the way out.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Larry begs for help as Matilda exhales a rumbling snarl, her shadow carving a path across the lights that beam distantly through the trees. But when Larry's screams suddenly cease, Kyle looks around fearfully, until Larry's body comes crashing down right next to him. Larry screams, reaching for Kyle and begging for his help, only to be dragged away into the underbrush before Kyle can grasp him. Matilda whips around overhead, shrieking, as Kyle races for the crashed car, letting himself inside and commandeering it as he switches on a large lantern and places it in the seat next to him. He twists the key in the ignition, shifting gears and speeding away from this terrible scene.
She's just adding to his charges at this point.
True.
Yeah.
But back at the hospital, Michael is loaded onto the bed that extends out of the darkness of the deprivation tank, Murphy manning several monitors after hooking him up properly. But elsewhere, Kyle races for the hospital, smoke billowing from the engine and into the cab through the shattered windshield as he frantically searches through Larry's state-of-the-art Nokia cell phone for Caitlin's phone number. Instead, he reaches the front desk of the hospital, where Nurse Alex, played by Jenny Lovell, answers the call. Kyle demands to speak to Caitlin Green, and after consulting a stack of paperwork on her desk, Alex apologizes, explaining that Caitlin is unavailable. It's like, are you her secretary?
Yeah.
How do you even know?
She's like, hold my calls.
But Kyle implores her to find her, adding that this is Kyle Walsh. Alex just repeats that Caitlin isn't available, but Kyle beseeches, don't let them put Michael in the dark. I'm almost there. The call disconnects. Alex glancing down at the receiver. Kyle tosses the phone away, but we cut back immediately to find Alex back on the phone, inquiring, hello? Police?
Oh my God.
I laughed out loud.
Why the fuck would you tell them who you are?
It's that
yeah.
when you know your reputation, you've not been welcomed warmly by hardly anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like, oh, hell no.
No, we're not doing that.
Not on my watch.
But Caitlin watches through the partition with Nurse Lauren as Michael shivers nervously on the table, Murphy readying a syringe of sedative to inject intravenously. As it enters his bloodstream, Michael writhes in sharp pain, and Caitlin clutches her heart, pleading to know what's happening. Lauren explains that there might be a burning sensation associated with the sedative, but Murphy implores the attending and uncredited nurse inside to hold Michael down to the table, which she does. Caitlin stands tearful as Murphy pushes the plunger down firmly, the doctor assuring Michael that it's all right and it's almost over. And this was supposed to be an homage to The Exorcist.
Okay.
I can see that for
right.
sure.
And I was guessing that it was a sedative because I don't know why they're injecting him with anything to go into a sensory deprivation chamber.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
If it's an MRI, it could be like a dye.
Yeah.
But it's not an MRI. Remember?
It's an MRI.
Yeah, they're telling us it's not an MRI.
Yeah. Don't believe your eyes. Believe what we're telling you.
But the score hums ominously as Michael begins to lurch forward on his table and into the machine, Murphy calling out to dim the interior lights. A raspy voice echoes from inside as it dips to darkness, Michael slowly inching his way closer and closer, his body slowly overtaken by shadows, but his fearful face still protected by the light of the examination room. Just a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
First one, how the hell is Matilda inside this machine right now? That's number one. And number two, is it like fucking Osmodiar and Homer where only Michael can hear her? Like,
why do you keep bringing up Osmodiar?
I think that's a great and very funny episode. And that doesn't get a lot of credit. I think it was the 138 episode spectacular.
Yeah, it was good.
Or was it the spin-off showcase? I don't know.
It doesn't. Well, spin-off showcase wasn't
that makes
as
a lot more
good.
sense.
But
Yeah, I take back everything I've said. But all I'm saying is that Murphy is right there.
Right.
How the hell is he not hearing this raspy ass fucking phantom inside this machine?
Is it one of those things where you have to believe?
Nobody has said that.
Well,
no, but nobody's saying a lot of things.
But no, you're right, because even if it's one of those you look at her and then you can hear her, everybody else has heard her when she's around.
True.
Ray heard her in the woods when
yeah.
he looked up and seen, and he kind of like, the hell? But
Yeah.
he didn't see her. Larry in the car, he heard, and then he looked up. Like, you still should be able to hear her.
What's that rattle?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand. Like, you have people, it was not even just Murphy, it was Murphy and a nurse in there.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to be like, hey, I think there's a fucking demon in here.
They're like, look, we don't know what a sensory deprivation tank is. Maybe they all come with a demon. We do not know.
Dr. Travis already left.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's selling the monorail.
But just before darkness can fully envelop the boy, Kyle bursts through the double doors of the room, ordering Murphy to stop and to take Michael out of that machine. Michael whimpers as his face disappears in a shroud of shadows, his fearful eyes the only thing visible within a slice of light. But just in the nick of time, Caitlin enters the room, too, and urges Murphy to do what Kyle says. Reluctantly, Murphy hits the red cancel button on the machine, which guides Michael out of the dark tunnel. And as Murphy and Caitlin release Michael from his straps, Kyle insists that the three of them are leaving and he informs them that he has a car waiting downstairs.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It is Larry's mangled car,
Uh-huh.
but it's a car nonetheless.
It is.
Larry's dead, by the way.
Yeah.
And Larry's also dead. I'm still unclear as to your relationship, but he's no
Yeah.
longer with us.
And I will say, I heard on commentary, the fucking director, when this scene happened, Kyle bursts in just in the right time. He goes, "Great, in the nick of time, so the movie can continue for another 25 minutes." I was like,
You
what
made
the
Yeah.
hell?
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
That's crazy.
Was he wanting Michael to die?
I don't know.
I know.
He's like,
What the hell?
kill the boy. Let's credits roll. All 11 minutes of it. But before Kyle's plan can come to fruition, Officer Matt, flanked by Officer Batten, enters the room, slamming Kyle to the ground and promptly cinching handcuffs around his wrists. The two officers pull Kyle upright, wrenching him away with the help of another officer played by Marnie Statkus.
And why is he under arrest?
This is a great question that I assume is answered in another version of the film.
Oh, because not this one.
Because all the nurse did was call the police, but there's nothing that Kyle has done.
Yeah, we don't know that he's not supposed to be allowed there.
And they're not in Michael's room, so he had to be like, "Where are the greens?" or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, right down there."
Gave him directions.
That's true.
Right down the hall, take a left.
It is too, again, this scene, this is another instance of, no, just, I'm going to tell you what to think.
Yeah.
Because they tell him twice, stop resisting. He's not even moving.
No.
At all. Even when they pick him up, he says it again. He's like, stop resisting. He's just standing there. It's like, what are you talking about?
I don't get it.
That's painful. Again, yeah, we're telling you what to experience.
Yeah.
But as he's taken into custody, Kyle implores Caitlin, don't let them put Michael in the dark. He admits that Michael was right and that she has to believe him. But Caitlin just holds her brother in her arms, the shot dipping to slow motion as she looks up at Dr. Murphy. The look as well was odd.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of more of just like annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, can you believe this shit? That's what her eyes are saying.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that would go back to stay away from me and my brother.
Yeah.
And then he shows up and gets arrested, and she's like, this fucking dude, like, I never should have called him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not
The
where
story.
we're at in this version of the film.
Because when he asked to stop, she was like, yeah, stop.
Uh-huh.
Listen to everything that
This
Kyle
crazy
says.
man is saying.
Yeah.
But Kyle is forced into a cell at the police station, catching his breath against the bars. Matt taunts, let's see your lawyer get you out of this one, Kyle. But Kyle reveals that that's going to be kind of tough, considering his lawyer is in a couple of pieces out on Ponus Avenue.
Now, why the
I
hell
know.
would you
I
say
know.
that?
I'm the one who did it.
Yeah.
What are you doing, dude?
Matt inquires if this is a confession, but with the camera arcing around him, Kyle turns around, looking up into the light above him, whispering to no one in particular that he'll give this a shot. He approaches Matt on the other side of the cell, sharing that he saw something when he was 10 years old, stating that Matt heard the stories when he was a kid, just like they all did.
10?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There is no fucking way that anyone in this film is 22.
No.
No.
Also, I don't even think that Larry could be a lawyer at age 22. There's way more schooling involved. Not to be...
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, again, there's so many things with those changes where they're like, well, let's do 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years would have been way better.
It would
It would
have.
have.
It would have made a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle continues, staring Matt in the eyes as he declares, I saw her. She killed my mother. He adds that once you've seen her, she doesn't stop. But Matt just crosses his arms, a smug look on his face, as Kyle explains that he's stayed in the light ever since, as it's the only way to be safe. He confides that now Michael has seen her too, and now she's coming for both of them. But Matt suddenly whacks at the iron bars with his nightstick, admonishing, I thought you'd say something like that, Walsh. It's like, you did?
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
But Kyle inquires, how many unsolved murders have you had around here? Not just this year, but the last 100. How many of them involve children? This last question seems to strike a chord with Matt, who returns his eyes to Kyle. But the moment of seeming understanding is shattered when Matt can only mutter, "You're crazy, Walsh."
But why?
I don't know.
Because it's true, or because you know that I'm telling a lie? Like, explore that a little more. Why?
Nah.
And I know you're telling me nobody has put this together?
Yeah.
How many kids have been killed randomly in the middle of the night after losing their last baby tooth?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And something that we should probably take a closer look into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're like, so Kyle Walsh travels back here every time? A kid loses their last tooth?
And also back in time.
Yeah.
But Kyle just glances up at the light above him, countering that crazy isn't what it used to be. He thought he ate with that one. I don't know.
He thought he did.
But thunder rumbles above the station as Matt returns to his desk, calling his father on the phone and reporting that they've got Walsh locked up. But just as soon as this news is shared, lightning strikes brightly through the windows, dipping the entire station into darkness. But not just the station. We spy the town in a wide shot, the beacon of the lighthouse circling at the coastline, until suddenly, in almost a chain reaction, sections of the town dip to dark one by one until darkness falls. But at the station, the generator kicks into gear, backup lights switching on as officers search for their flashlights, and Kyle does his best to catch his breath and not freak out. At the hospital, though, Michael rests worriedly in bed, the blankets pulled up to his chin as the camera arcs around him to find Caitlin. Michael mutters, "We're all going to die." And Caitlin goes, "Shh." She's like, we're not doing that.
None of that.
But back at the station, Matt takes control, ordering his subordinates to various sections of the town for patrol. Captain Henry appears in the doorway, sneering, "What the hell's going on in my town tonight?" Matt laments that he doesn't know, but the father and son are interrupted by the distant sound of shattering glass. And it is just a pet peeve of mine because every single time that they interact,
Yeah.
Matt's like, "I don't know, Dad." Or something, Dad.
We really need
We know.
you to know that they're
Yeah.
father and son.
Mhm.
But it doesn't really come into play or matter at all.
No.
And in fact, Captain Henry, who was fucking there the morning that they took Kyle's mother's dead body away,
Yeah.
never really talks to Kyle with the gravity of having been there.
Yeah.
No.
He should.
And it's just it's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
But Henry orders his son to take care of this as he retreats to his office, and Matt accepts the order, directing Batten to go check it out. Batten refuses, suggesting Matt should go, but Matt reminds Batten that he outranks him, and Batten retorts, "Well, lead by example and go see what it is."
I know that's right.
Dude, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Kyle calls out to whoever is going to investigate that they need to take a flashlight. Matt just shoots back for Kyle to shut up, but he's sure to snag Batten's flashlight before he exits the office.
I'm just like, as this dude wanders off, at least he can't be blamed for this one.
Right.
Because he's locked up in his cell.
Mm-hmm.
He really did, to his own detriment, kind of spill the beans on Larry and all that. But like this one, nobody can say he did it.
Right.
No. And I got to be honest, Kyle's the safest person in this building right now.
Yeah.
There's no way she's fitting that fucking face and stuff through the bars. But the beam of Matt's flashlight arcs over the darkened aisles of the evidence room as he creeps his way forward, shadows darting around him as he checks his corners, his flashlight carving through the darkness of the shelves. As Matt seems to linger for a moment at a very stacked shelf labeled Unsolved Cases, something suddenly moves behind him, startling the officer to clatter back into nearby boxes, toppling them over, the impact shutting off his flashlight. Matt stands frantic in total darkness, attempting to knock his flashlight back on, as guttural moans suddenly surround him, culminating in a horrific howl. But before anything can properly descend upon him, the bright beam of Matt's flashlight returns, and we pull back from him to reveal a shadow cast against the floor, which retreats as Matt approaches. The officer crosses cautiously to the other side of the evidence room, But suddenly, from the office, we hear Matt scream wildly before firing several rounds. 2 officers race into the evidence room, calling out to their superior, clearing the aisles until they find Matt standing at the end of the last aisle in the beam of their flashlight. Lamentful, Matt instructs the officers to tell Batten that he shot his dog. The officer asks in disbelief, "You shot Rocky?" But annoyed, Matt amends his statement, stating that he shot at him and that the dog was very quick.
It's like, what?
Yeah, what the fuck? I do like the shadow play.
Yes.
That was really cool.
I like the suspense of that sequence entirely.
Yeah.
They did say that they were wanting to put a section where whenever he walked over to the unsolved cases section,
Yeah.
that he would linger even longer and kind of start to look inside only to be startled away from it.
Okay.
But they were like, well, it's kind of killing the suspense of it if we take a full moment for him to look through some files.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I think that they made the right call
Okay.
because I do like how everything just kind of happened so suddenly.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would like him to linger for a moment to say, you know, maybe Kyle was right.
That
Yeah.
I think that even, his hesitation there would speak volumes of maybe something is getting through
Yeah.
and you're not just completely dismissing him like you have been.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you look even for a second at that unsolved section, it's like unsolved A through F. Like it's fucking huge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude, we got a big problem
Yeah.
here.
But back in the office, Batten rests casually against a desk, shining one of Kyle's bright confiscated beacons right at him through the bars. He asks mockingly, "Oh, is she gonna get me?" Thunder rumbles and lightning flashes as Kyle answers, "Yes."
I mean, he's been consistent.
Yeah.
And just then, whispers suddenly surround the men, solemnity seizing Batten surely as he slowly rises from his seat and reaches for the service weapon at his hip. As he inches his way into the shadows, Kyle implores the officer to stay in the light, but Batten just fires back for Kyle to shut up.
What's it going to hurt to just listen?
Yeah.
I don't
know.
know. And you've heard the stories. You fucking grew up here.
Yeah.
It's like some people did, some people didn't. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Like,
But those noises I heard,
Yes.
yeah.
come on. Unfortunately for Batten, he ventures too far into the darkness, and in a flash of distant lightning, Matilda materializes, her cloak a black wisp as she reaches for Batten's face, hurling him into the bars of Kyle's cell, shattering the backup light perched above it. Kyle frantically pats the resulting sparks that land on him as he clatters to the floor, and as other officers return, led by Matt and Captain Henry, Kyle shouts for them to use their flashlights. As they catch him cowering in the beam of their lights, Kyle asserts that Matilda is in the building with them, and they have to believe him. Henry's eyes stay fixed on Kyle as he orders Officer Marnie to check the offices, and for Officer Roy, played by Roy Edmonds, to check on Batten. He then orders Officers Mark and Phil, played by Mark Wickham and Philip Riley, to search the squad room before ordering his son to come with him. The pair exit as the officers tend to their assignments, Roy kneeling in front of Kyle's cell, assessing the status of Batten, determining that it's pretty bad. Kyle just begs and pleads for a flashlight, but before he can be given one, Matilda slinks through the shadows, seizing Officer Roy and making short work of him, before darting through the darkness as the other officers open fire on her. Their bullets find homes in the surrounding lights, shattering them as Kyle protests and warns that she's making them shoot the lights.
It is funny. Like we can tell.
Mhm.
Like you can see. Is like stop shooting.
And the officers just don't care.
No.
Or don't even realize.
It is very strange. Nobody's listening. Like he just said again, flashlight.
Uh-huh.
Still no.
They're like, Wall, shut up!
Yeah.
Shoot at the flashlight. Okay.
As Matilda wreaks havoc across the station, snatching up officers and making a mess of the place, Kyle reaches through the bars for the keys on Batten's belt, cycling through them under Matt's watchful eye. As Matilda howls, floating frightfully through the station, Matt calls out to Kyle that it's key 34, heeding his warnings not to look directly at Matilda. The station devolves into a frenzy of blind fire as Matilda's claws grab hold of Officer Marnie, hurling her through a glass divider. Henry fires at Matilda from his office, nailing one of the lights near to her, the sparks shooting in her direction, inspiring a pained shriek from the specter. In the midst of madness, Kyle finally finds the proper key, unlocking his cell and freeing himself. He races over to an adjacent desk, gathering his flashlights into his bag. But in the captain's office, Matilda seizes Henry by the ankle, pulling him to the floor, and before she can drag him away, Matt fires wildly at her, one of his bullets catching the porcelain of her mask, chipping it, which only seems to fill the Tooth Fairy with tooth fury.
All right. He was like, stop pointing that gun at my dad.
She swoops upon Matt, who screams and cowers defensively, but a bright light suddenly beams at Matilda, forcing her swift retreat. It's Kyle, to the rescue, who offers one of his bright lanterns to Matt, informing him that Matilda is going to go for Michael next, and they have to get out of here.
I saved you.
Yes.
All my charges need to be dropped. All the suspicions. I want a cake, a statue in Town Square. Like, there's no way you guys don't believe me anymore.
No, and you saw.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
And we never see Captain Henry again, by the way. I don't understand. But at the hospital, emergency lights shine down into the halls, but Michael hides beneath his bed in his room. Caitlin attempts to coax him out, assuring him that there's nothing to be afraid of, but Michael is hesitant to join her in the dark, pleading with her. Caitlin only ceases her ingress when a loud shriek emanates from outside in the hall, her eyes searching fearfully for the source of it, before promptly joining her brother beneath his bed and using his flashlight to survey their surroundings.
What is this, Haddonfield Memorial?
Dude, where is... I don't know. The Wraith whips wildly around the room, wailing as she does, as Michael attempts to follow her with the beam of his flashlight. Caitlin shivers. What the hell is that? But before Michael can answer her, Matilda clatters on top of the hospital bed with a thud, rocking it up and down before tossing it away completely, forcing Caitlin and Michael out of their hiding place and into the hall. Matilda follows close behind as they race through the intermittent glow of backup lights, reaching double doors at the end of the hall and slinking backward into what appears to be a storage room. As noises clatter around them, Caitlin cowers away from them with her brother, foolishly calling out, "Hello?"
Yeah.
The pair slink away through the darkness, Michael shining his flashlight in front of him in protection as they clatter out of the back exit of the storage room, stumbling into an outside hall and racing through it to reach an elevator. Michael smashes the call button, and as they wait impatiently for the car, Matilda smashes through glass to reach them. Hovering above them and tilting her head like Michael Myers as she inches her way closer, floating frightfully in their direction. Caitlin can't believe her eyes as she stands frozen in terror, but the elevator doors suddenly slide open behind her, and an arm reaches out from inside to pull her and Michael into the car. It's Kyle, who stands heroic with a bright flashlight at the ready for them, tossing a burning flare out into the hall when Matilda races for the opening, causing her to retreat rapidly at the sight of its light.
One thing about Kyle is he's going to show up in the nick of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's his only skill. The lights flicker above them as Michael clings to Kyle, rejoicing. "I knew you'd come back."
Dad. What do you mean you knew he'd come
I
back?
don't even know. There was nothing there.
No.
Like, last time I saw you, you were arrested.
Yeah.
Did you kill every station?
Did you kill Uncle Larry?
Yeah. But as the car carries them downward to a lower floor, Caitlin asks Kyle how they're supposed to stop Matilda. Before Kyle can even answer, the car clatters to a jarring stop, and we watch as Matilda sails down the elevator shaft, smashing into the car's roof, sending a rain of sparks down onto the trio as they cower, shielding their face from it as Matilda tears a hole in the roof. But before she can swoop upon the three of them, Caitlin strikes a flare, bathing the car in red light. Everybody calm down.
No,
Mm-hmm.
Darkness Falls, it's a mixed bag. You know what I mean? There's a lot of cons and some pros. And I think that it's interesting that to that list of pros, we can add that it's a Giallo film.
It does have voiceover work.
Right.
It
Well, I was gonna
does.
say,
It does.
Yeah.
And the red light and the ADR. You know, like as a kid watching this, I just didn't have the intelligence or the knowledge to be able to identify that Darkness Falls 2003 is technically a Giallo film.
I'm going to burn this place down. It's going to be Matilda's fucking lighthouse in here. Can't even speak. As Matilda feverishly flies away, Kyle reaches for the elevator doors in an attempt to wrench them open. Caitlin rushes to help him, and the pair are only successful when Michael joins the fray. But as soon as they get the doors open, a hand reaches out for them. It's Dr. Murphy with Nurse Alex at his side. Murphy looks down at our trio, but something seems to catch his eye in the elevator shaft. He eyes the back of a tattered cloak floating in the darkness, but when Matilda turns to face him, her eyes fixed on him through her porcelain mask, Murphy can only shriek as he stumbles back to the floor. He earnestly asks, "What the hell is that?" But rather than provide an answer, Kyle just lifts Michael up into the small hole at the top of the elevator doors, helping him climb to safety on the upper floor. But as he lifts Caitlin upward, Matilda is back on her bullshit, messing with the cables that hold the elevator car in place. After Caitlin reaches the sanctuary of the upper level, Kyle climbs up as fast as he can, the cables above him snapping as he's barely able to exit the car in a photo finish, the carriage careening as soon as he makes it to safety with the others.
Nah, because that should have bisected him.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw
that editing was,
that was pretty bad.
Deceitful.
Yeah. As it crashes in a heap at the bottom of the shaft, Kyle realizes something. The bag. He learns that nobody was able to grab his bag full of flashlights, which, how could they?
Yeah.
He's like, was anyone able to grab it? It's like, no! But without his flashlight, he suggests that they all get to the lobby. He approaches a shaken Murphy, demanding to know how long the emergency lights will stay on. But it's Nurse Alex who answers for the doctor, alerting Kyle that they only have a couple of minutes. Which also doesn't really make any sense.
No.
The whole point of it's powering the entire hospital, right?
Yeah.
They're just really trying to up the stakes, I think.
Yes, but like, what about all your patients?
Yeah.
Like
They're the only patients here.
Kyle is certain that that's all they need to get out of here. But suddenly, a door opens in the hall, startling the shit out of Caitlin and Alex, who can't help but scream. But it's only Nurse Lauren who shrieks in response. Collecting herself, she demands to know what Kyle is doing here. She turns to make her exit with a resigned, "I'm calling the police."
Nothing if not consistent.
Yeah.
Kyle informs her that the police are dead. And this obviously surprises Lauren, but Kyle has no time for this, leading the group in search of the staircase, insisting that when the hospital goes dark, they're all dead if they don't get out of here. Alex leads him in the proper direction, but when she suggests that she should evacuate the other patients in the hospital, Kyle states certainly that Matilda's not after the other patients. She's after them. They saw her. The patients didn't.
No. Nobody in the cops weren't paying attention.
Yes.
That's bullshit. And I'm sorry, that's just a cheesy way to be like, don't worry about anybody else in the hospital. Because
Yeah, they're all
they're
fine.
not going to hear this. Yeah.
We don't have to hire extras.
No.
And Lauren has not seen Matilda. She can be like, well, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Go back down to the stairs or whatever and leave.
Oh, yeah.
You're safe. But Kyle's like, no, come with us. We need extra bodies.
Yeah. That. And that's my moving forward. It's like, okay, we're adding more people to the parties so that there's more people kind of to pick off before we get to our core.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just this late in the game. It's just so obvious.
But as they continue their trek, Kyle just urges them, stay in the light, and we stay alive. The group then reaches a boiler room or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is the way to the staircase. But we see long stretches of metal pipes lining the walls, and only a singular light source at the corner of the room, casting its safety across them. Kyle darts through the darkness for the pipes, Solid Snake sneaking across them as he instructs the others to follow his lead. He instructs, tight against the wall, single file. Michael is the first to follow, a fast learner, but unfortunately, Nurse Alex didn't grasp the assignment, and as she rushes to join them, she lingers a little too long in the darkness, Matilda charging right for her, but apparently only slapping the shit out of her and sending her sailing against the pipes, clattering to the floor inside of the beam of light. That's cheap.
It was a warning.
Yeah.
Why are we warning?
I don't know. Motivations get a little muddy.
They do.
We honestly haven't even talked or thought about teeth in a very long time.
Yeah, this is.
We've strayed a little bit.
Murphy rushes to check on Alex, lifting her to her feet with Caitlin's help, the group following close behind Michael and Kyle as Kyle guides the fearful boy forward. But suddenly, the light above them burns out, the group screaming in fear in unison as Matilda makes her presence known, the raw flesh around her right eye now visible through her chipped mask as she swoops down upon Lauren as soon as she glances over, carrying the poor nurse impossibly high into the darkness.
Yeah, I was wondering what the ceiling situation was down here.
They're like, our basement doesn't have one somehow. But the remaining group races through a nearby hall, forcing their way through plastic sheeting to finally reach the staircase. Caitlin and Michael rush forward as Kyle helps Murphy carry Alex onward, but the lights above the stairs suddenly short out selectively, large sections shrouded in shadows, separating the group and forcing Kyle to improvise. He realizes to rejoin Caitlin and Michael at the bottom, they're gonna have to jump the flight of stairs. Murphy challenges, "What are you, crazy?" And Kyle answers, "Yeah, a little bit." It's no time for that bullshit, dude. Murphy just peers down to the lower level at Caitlin and Michael, wondering if there's any way that Caitlin could come back and get them.
What?
What the hell? Kyle doesn't bother answering and instead instructs the doctor and the nurse that they'll have to jump all at once. He says this will give Matilda multiple targets.
You.
Yeah. The trio grasps hands as Caitlin and Michael wait worriedly on the lower level. Kyle counts down as they take flight together, Matilda reaching through the darkness and snatching Nurse Alex mid-air, carrying her off as Kyle and Murphy clatter to the carpet of the landing below. With one more flight to go, Kyle asks Murphy if he's ready, which he obviously isn't, but Kyle just counts down anyway, and on 3, the pair leap together, tumbling down the steps as Matilda reaches blindly for them to no avail. Murphy rejoices at the bottom. Thank God she missed me.
I laughed out loud. He says something else, too.
Yeah. Kyle is injured in the fall, resting against the wall at the bottom of the steps, with Murphy declaring, "I'm getting the hell out of here."
He is us.
Yes,
He's all of
yeah.
us.
Caitlin is forced to rescue Kyle, rushing for the small beam of light that protects him from the specter. Michael, forgetting for a mere moment that he's not supposed to be Australian, shouts, "Caitlin, no!"
That's literally my note.
He's afraid. He's
He
afraid.
is.
So he really is.
But his sister dashes for Kyle, reaching him on the steps. As they sit together in the safety of the light, Matilda floats before them, her eye darting around withered flesh as she rasps, "Kyle."
what makes him so special?
Yeah.
First name basis.
Yeah.
Well, he said that she's like bonded to you forever since you see her, but she's been fucking killing people for 12 years.
Yeah.
You're still on about me?
Yeah.
It's still on site?
It's like, look, it is kind of flattering. I'm not going to lie. I must leave a lasting impression, but why?
Yeah.
But Caitlin drags Kyle by his shirt down the stairs, the pair tumbling together to the bottom just as the light above them goes out. The room descended to complete darkness. Matilda floats closer to her would-be victims. But before she can seize them, incessant honking is heard from outside the hospital, and suddenly, the bright lights of Matt's police SUV beam through the glass entrance of the hospital, forcing Matilda's rapid retreat upward as the officer crashes through the front door, shattering his way into the hospital lobby. With Matilda nowhere in sight, and Murphy still there despite announcing his departure.
Where's he going to go?
I don't know.
Come on.
Kyle forces everyone inside of Matt's vehicle, the officer whipping a U-turn and carting them off to safety down the street. As they speed down the road, Murphy still struggles to make sense of what he saw, but Kyle just turns his attention to Matt, asking if he got them. Matt confirms that he did, and when Caitlin asks what they're talking about, Kyle reveals gas cans were headed to the lighthouse. Matt elaborates that the lighthouse has a gasoline-powered backup system, and if they light that up, they're in business, and he promises that it isn't far. Caitlin reaches for Kyle's hand in the back seat, the pair sharing a moment together, which Murphy promptly ruins, demanding to know why they don't just keep driving. He reasons that they're safe in the car. But no sooner do these words leave his lips than Matilda reappears, crashing through the glass of the back window and pulling Murphy out into the fog with her.
My note was, I think that we can probably all agree that the doctor is not long for this world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, there he goes.
Yeah. Because like you said, he said he was going to take off, but he still came with us.
Yeah, he should have taken off.
Yeah, this was the only reason why.
With the doctor dispatched, Matilda bashes out each and every window of the vehicle before descending upon the roof, the metal bending at the force of her arrival. I thought she was going to smash her face at the front like Michael Myers in Halloween 4. But Matt swerves in an effort to shake her loose as the other members of the group each reach for a source of light. A cowering Michael snatches a glow stick as Kyle and Caitlin snag a flashlight, Caitlin barely able to beam it through the back window just as Matilda makes her presence known, and before she can enter the cab, she's warded away by its bright light. As her tattered cloak whips away in the wind, Caitlin's flashlight goes out. The car dips to darkness once again, Kyle calling out to Matt, asking if there are any other lights back there, and learning that there are 2 kerosene lanterns in the trunk. Matt races for the front of the lighthouse, parking his vehicle recklessly. But the group exits, Matt leading the way with his shotgun as they force the door to the lighthouse open, the officer flanked by Kyle and Caitlin, who each clutch a lantern that is definitely electric.
Yeah. That's not a kerosene lamp. Not at all.
But Michael stands at the center of the adults as they venture forward, locating the backup generator, which rests behind a fence. I did learn that the exterior of the lighthouse is a very real lighthouse.
Oh, cool.
But the interior is absolutely a set.
Okay.
It looks good.
Yeah.
Kyle reaches his hand inside the fence, making a few connections, and when Caitlin asks if he thinks this will work, he answers that it has to. But eerie whispers echo above them, and they all glance up the stair hole of the spiral staircase. As they begin to climb it, Matt locates the tank for the generator, Kyle pouring gasoline into it until Matt deems it to be sufficient, the group continuing upward until they reach the top, kept secure by the light of their lanterns. Matt rushes for the controls, switching on the massive oscillating lamp at the center of the room, bragging that if that thing hates light, she's not gonna want to come in here. All right. But just as soon as the light beams brightly around them and they rejoice momentarily, the light suddenly burns out. Kyle asks what happened, and Matt posits that there might be a fuel line blockage or something because it's not getting to the generator. Lamentful that their lanterns aren't going to last very long, Kyle insists, "We have to go down and fix it." Matt asks, "What do you mean we?"
Protect and serve.
Uh-huh.
That was wild.
Yeah. And those lamps aren't going to last long because he didn't charge them.
Yeah, right. Against Michael's protests, Kyle says that he and Matt will have to go and that it's the only way. Caitlin stops him with a whisper of his name, the pair making eye contact and saying more to each other than words ever could before Kyle embarks on his journey to the lower level with Matt. According to the writers, this is where they were supposed to kiss.
Oh.
But the producers said no.
Why though?
Yeah.
I don't know.
After that first kiss, I was really expecting a full circle moment.
Yeah, yeah.
That just never happened.
Mm-hmm.
The taste like blood?
Yeah.
Nope.
That I feel like that would, even just adding that probably would have helped, because as far as what's going on, this lady invited an old friend who had a tragic background back to the town where all his nightmares live when he was doing fine somewhere else, and now his nightmares are coming back. For what reason? Because you're brother and you don't want to listen?
And it's that. She asked him for help and then proceeded not to listen to a word that he said.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That would at least connect this version that we know of them as adults to that brief glimpse that we saw of them as kids.
Yeah.
And it is like, no, it's not just Kyle, who clearly still, the way that she called and he was like, "That's not funny," or whatever. Like, he still thinks about her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just him. If she were to make a comment calling back to that, yeah, I remember too.
Yeah.
I didn't just call you because I thought you could help me with my brother. Like, I remember you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not.
No.
It's not here. Just some more screaming. And
And it's annoying because, like we were talking about earlier, the young Caitlin, she was a badass.
Yeah, she was.
And we see none of that here.
No.
But on the staircase, Kyle warns the officer, "If anything happens to me, don't look back. Just get back up here and keep that thing off of them." Matt concurs, giving Kyle the same order, but he scoffs. "This thing is probably going to kill us, isn't it?" And when Kyle confirms this, Matt sighs. All this over a fucking tooth.
Well, she was murdered.
Yeah, there was more. More.
She was unjustly murdered. And we're circling back to teeth again.
Finally.
Yeah, there it goes.
Only took the whole film. But as the men descend the steps, they're overtaken by the smell of gasoline, realizing that it's leaking everywhere. Matt implores Kyle not to drop his lantern or the whole place will go up. He goes, "Pray to God you don't drop that shit."
Don't drop that shit.
But Kyle reminds Matt that she comes at you fast, so he better be ready with that shotgun. Matt asks, "What do you mean she? You talk about her like you know her." And Kyle reminds Matt that Matilda's been in his life for a really long time.
Yeah.
But he was saying all this shit at the police station.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. And you don't know the legend?
Yeah.
Your father's you've lived here.
Yeah.
And didn't he literally say, "I heard it just like you did"?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when they reach the pipes connected to the generator, the men discover a sizable leak. Kyle announcing, "There's gas all over the place."
I got milk all over me.
And it's funny because 3 times on the way down the stairs, it's like, "It smells like gas everywhere. This is gas everywhere. There's gas all over the place." It's like, I wonder if this is going to burn
Yeah.
No.
at all.
It'll probably be fine.
Mm-hmm. But as Kyle tightens a rag around the leaking pipe, Matt warns that the lantern isn't going to last much longer. But as he leans over the railing to light Kyle's mission, Matt's generosity leaves him vulnerable in the shadows. And with the quickness, Matilda returns, seizing Matt and snatching him upward through planks, which split and clatter on top of Kyle, causing him to lose his footing. No, I don't know where she took Matt.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I feel like this could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
Like, I think we could have done this a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle crashes to the floor next to his shattered lantern, his sleeve drenched in leaking kerosene, the small flame flickering inside of the lantern.
It did make me laugh because when he comes crashing down, there's just one thin strip of wood laid over his arm. And it's clearly somebody put it on there. Like, it just looked really funny.
But back up top, the kerosene in the second lantern dissipates, dipping Caitlin and Michael in darkness, until Michael whacks his glow stick against the metal of the massive lamp in front of them, bathing the pair in an eerie green. As the siblings hold on to each other, Matilda floats frightfully in the fog outside, slipping out of sight with a pained moan as Caitlin peers into the dark. But just as swiftly as she disappeared, does Matilda return, shattering through the glass windows of the lighthouse, startling Caitlin and Michael, and forcing them to drop their only light source, the green glow pouring out of the stick on the ground. Caitlin forces her little brother down to a lower level just as Matilda returns, seizing Caitlin through the shadows. But before she can abscond with her as she did with Matt, Kyle returns, hurling his shattered lantern right at her and causing Matilda to slink away, which sends Caitlin clattering to the grate next to him. The flames of the shattered lantern flicker on the ground, its orange glow providing a small sanctuary for the group, as Kyle snaps at Michael to join them and to get out of the dark. With the fire slowly burning out, Kyle realizes that he has no choice but to drag Caitlin over to the switches. The group inches their way closer, and as soon as they reach the switches, Kyle drops Caitlin on her probably broken back.
Yes!
She goes, huh!
And it's like in crushed glass.
Yeah!
My hero!
Kyle reaches through pipes to flip the switch, but when he's unable to reach it, he urges the much smaller Michael to try. As shadows descend upon them, Michael reaches with all of his might, tension rising as the flames burn out, and Matilda lies in wait, reaching her fingers toward Kyle, only to singe them in the remaining light. But when the lighthouse dips to total darkness, Michael is finally able to reach the switch, the bright beam at the lighthouse's center returning to life and catching Matilda within it. She rises upward with a shriek, her body sizzling beneath her black cloak, smoke rising from her as she writhes in searing pain. And in a flash, Matilda disappears. The villain seemingly vanquished, Kyle rejoices with Caitlin and Michael, the trio embracing in their seeming victory. Kyle urges the siblings to wait there as he ascends to the top of the lighthouse, bathed in the bright glow of its beaming lamp. Kyle stands triumphant for a moment, before kneeling down and offering his hand for the pair to join them. But just as soon as he dips into the shadows of the circulating light, Matilda reemerges from the roof, reaching down to seize Kyle by the face. He kicks wildly, his boot catching the looming lantern at the center of the room, shattering it and sending sparks shooting all around them as Caitlin shields herself and Michael from the falling glass. In his struggle with the specter, Kyle smacks Matilda's porcelain mask right off of her face, and we watch in slow motion as it reaches the floor, exploding into pieces, scattering the ceramic material across the metal grates, along with several dozen teeth.
Was she like eating those? Or?
Yeah.
Is the mask made of teeth? I don't
Yes, it's just lined on the inside.
Yeah, which is fucking funny because she made the mask before she died.
Oh,
So she's been doing this.
I said from the beginning I wasn't comfortable with the tooth situation.
But enraged, Matilda roars, unmasked. Her hair merely scraps, her eyes full of fury, her flesh raw and scarred, and her teeth jagged in her jaw as Kyle emits a high-pitched shriek. Matilda howls at the sight of the light, her vulnerable skin singed and smoking as she jams a thumb into Kyle's eye.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Fighting
kind
dirty.
of, yeah, that's wild.
She's been waiting a really long time for this.
But Kyle reaches his sleeve into the sparks that shoot from the shattered lantern, catching it ablaze, and with the dry, cool wit of an action hero, he bellows, "I see you, bitch! before clocking her right across the mouth with a flaming fist. Matilda is soon fully engulfed in flames, dropping Kyle down to the floor below, where he feverishly pats and blows out the fire at his arm.
Yeah. Action hero moment over.
Oh my God. That's really hot. I did hear he did legitimately do that.
God damn.
The actor. But it was the...
Wow, shit got real.
It did. I will say, too, I was glad that she came back, though, because that first one was so anticlimactic.
Very easy. It was too easy.
Way too easy. It's like, I was afraid of you this whole time. Then she's gouging his eyes out. And like, all right. I get it now.
That's the Matilda I know. But Kyle, Caitlin, and Michael watch as Matilda writhes in agony, a blue light bursting through her, enveloping her as she shrieks, exploding in a burst of light, the brightest flame engulfing her whole and setting free her wicked soul. The book.
Very good.
It would have been much cooler if Matt and Kyle didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
And she's like, the lighthouse. That it's Caitlin's idea.
Yeah.
Right. Because she read it.
Yeah. But the trio gathers together at the top of the tower, the light at the center circulating sanctuary all around them. But we suddenly spiral downward through the stair hole of the spiral staircase.
Woo!
Yeah. And we rest on the shattered mask of Matilda Dixon, the Tooth Fairy, and her discarded collection of teeth. But some evening later, distantly, in a suburban neighborhood, a little boy, played by Aaron Gazzola, rests in his bed under the light of a lamp. They did mention that this little boy was the runner-up to play Michael.
Okay.
But the boy's father, played by Matt Robertson, approaches him, sitting by his side and clutching the boy's last baby tooth in his fingers. He stashes the tooth beneath the boy's pillow, and with a kiss on the forehead, he reminds his son, "Don't peek." The father exits the room, switching off the lamp, but in the new darkness, the boy rolls over and attempts to fall asleep. Suddenly, a shadow darts across the room, catching the boy's fearful eye as he asks, "Tooth Fairy?"
God damn it, Billy!
But in a startling jump scare, the boy's mother, played by Cecilia Specht, sits down next to him, assuring him that it's only her. She kisses him sweetly on the cheek, imploring him to get some sleep as she slyly reaches her hand under his pillow, swapping out his lost tooth for a few coins. We cut to black and to the sound of Gunboat by Victrola. 11 minutes of credits roll. So, what did you guys think of Darkness Falls?
I do want to start by saying I think the socks I'm wearing have holes, so I will watch this movie again. So I'll just, because we're back to that now.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the movie. Talking about it, it does bring to light a lot of the problems that are
Very good.
They're trying to hide in the darkness falling of the movie. But it is strange because there is cool moments here, and then there is like the lore of her. That would have been cool if we would have like known about a little more of that.
Mm-hmm.
If we would have learned about a little more of that, if we would have anything. I'm so sorry that he was given 3 different directions to go, because I do feel like him and Kat, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
Just expand on that. You already gave us that cool opening. Even if we know that the Tooth Fairy is real and he's seen that, that's fine. You have this opening, stick with that story. Keep it there, and like you're saying, babe, the full circle moment or whatever, it would make it seem a little more like, look, everybody didn't believe me in the town. I came to save the day. Here I am. You believed in me this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I never gave up hope in you, whatever. It wasn't that, because Caitlin was like, get him the fuck out of here. And it's weird. It is just that, the whole, them calling him freak for... Again, murder, yeah. Did you do something fucked up? Yeah, you did. But the man's done nothing that we know of or that you've told us or shown us to warrant that. So it is like, huh? The dub, the ADR, like that. Holy shit. But again, I will and I would watch this again. But it is a ton of fun. But man, it's fun trouble or fun problems, or I don't even know how to like put what two words to put with together. Fun is one of them, though.
All right.
Fun is one of them.
Is one.
I will agree with that. I mean, I think we made it pretty clear what our issues were throughout. I think that so much meddling, so many, I don't know, too many cooks in the kitchen, I guess, too much going back, changing fundamental things about the story, and then leaving in threads from all the pieces that you Frankensteined together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The ADR is egregious. It's so bad. And the choice to end it on this random child, I guess, to show that she's done. It's like, who gives a fuck about Kyle and them, I guess? Because we don't get full closure on them. They're still in the lighthouse when we see them.
Yeah.
Kyle's still recovering from, putting out his flaming arm. It was a choice. I thought we would at least get a goodbye and maybe get the kiss there.
Yeah.
Or Kyle's like, I'm your dad now, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the dynamic, but they've left a lot of people dead in this town, and I think that we just that's over.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we get down from here? That's just done. But there is something weirdly comforting and fun still about this film, even though I feel like we really went in on it a little bit, but it needed it. I don't even know who to point to be like, this is where the issues stem from.
Right.
From everything I heard, it seems like the producers.
Well, the producers, shame on you.
Yeah.
Because this was a great opening, a really cool premise. And it just feels like, I don't want to say a waste, because it's still a fun film. I still have a lot of nostalgia for it. Even as an adult, I'm like, I know that the story does not work, but I'm gonna watch it again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just like, damn, this could have been something really incredible, especially since they were planning on like a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is a bummer. That's really disappointing. But yeah, Darkness Falls held up in ways, most certainly did not hold up in other ways.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to revisit it again after all this time and still find the value in it, and also the moments when you're young, you're not thinking about that, but now it's like, wait, this makes no fucking sense. And why does nobody's mouth match what they're saying?
No, I agree with both of you. It was a lot of fun to revisit it because we did watch the hell out of this film when we were younger.
Yeah.
And I do remember so many things really scaring the hell out of me when I was 12. And there are still those things like that opening. I don't care how old I am. That is a fantastic sequence.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think I'll love that forever. But where it goes after that, it just does not live up to what they started with. And it's a goddamn shame to hear of all these really cool, like, ambiguous elements that are just cut out completely.
I would have loved that.
Yeah.
If for half of the film we're like, maybe Kyle did kill his mother.
Yeah.
And then we learn that he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this supernatural creature.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But no, it's really funny because at the beginning of the film, they're like, the Tooth Fairy's real.
No, yeah.
Like, she's right there.
Yeah.
We even see her kill his mom.
Yeah.
Like,
And we learn the fable, like all that.
Yep.
So it's just like, you've made it blatantly. And then it kind of makes those elements kind of ridiculous because you're like, I have fucking seen her.
Yeah.
And you're still going to paint Kyle as this murderer?
Mm-hmm.
There's no mystery to it.
No. Leave us in the dark.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, going back and trying to do reshoots and then not taking out elements that do not fit with the film that you're now trying to make.
Yeah.
It's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just very odd to me that they were so clumsy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still somehow a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I absolutely will return to it. I'm not returning to it for narrative
Right.
or character or, but I feel let's just slide into ratings at this point.
Yeah.
I do think that on the positive side, and I forgot to mention, Brian Tyler did the score for this film. We just talked about him on The Final Destination.
Yeah.
He, again, is one of the shining parts
Yeah.
of a film that's not that great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think that the cinematography was pretty fantastic. It really fit all the things that they were needing to do.
Yeah.
When your story is based in darkness and light and all this, those elements need to be very prevalent and very clearly marked.
Yeah.
And I think that the cinematographer did a great job with that. And there are a lot of sequences that are pretty cool where there are these clear delineations of this part is safe, this part is not. You got to stay in the light. Like, I appreciate that. I like a supernatural villain that has rules that need to be followed, though the film doesn't follow it all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like the creature design.
Oh, yeah.
I was very, very impressed by that porcelain mask.
Yeah.
The tattered black clothing.
Mm-hmm.
I love this idea of a dark fairy tale.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell. But man, what they did with some of these things, it just does not work.
Yeah.
And it so easily could have if it weren't for the fucking studio.
Yeah.
Stop hiring people that you think are creative and great and then getting in their way.
Yeah.
You loved the story that you were given enough to make the film. You loved the director that you hired from the basis of his previous work enough to hire him.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Do your thing. Not that, though.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So I was just pretty irritated by a lot of the places that it went.
Yeah.
And don't fucking try to tell me an MRI machine is...
It's a sensory deprivation.
That's so weird. But, I mean, honestly, I will very openly admit that a lot of my enjoyment of this film is based in nostalgia.
Yeah.
There are so many parts of this film that I remember as a 12-year-old that I just really, really appreciated, and they have stayed with me. So giving a score is a little bit difficult. I think, honestly, if I were to watch this for the very first time right now,
Yes.
I would probably give it like a 5.
Okay.
Right.
But having that nostalgia built in, out of 10 tormentingly taken teeth, I am going to give Darkness Falls a 6 tormentingly taken teeth out of 10. 1 point's enough,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
But I will now open the floor to you.
No, I feel about the same way. I think if we watched it now just kind of fresh, it would be like, yeah, there was some cool things, but, not all of it. I do still think that it is that, because even still watching it when it came out when I was 19, 20, whenever the fucking DVD came out, I still did own the DVD and I watched it.
Yeah.
And I still was like, oh, that's crazy shit. But yeah, being older now, or being able to, or having to stop and analyze it and look, and it's like, oh, wow, like this is not... That's not what I thought. Like, I don't remember that, but it's there. So clearly we just didn't pay attention, or we were too engrossed in the fucking Tooth Fairy. We didn't pay attention to anything else. But yeah, it is comfort. I will say that. This is a movie that I could even see that just putting it on in the background and then let it go while you're doing something else. Check in every now and then. It's like, oh shit, yeah. But thinking about it too, the title is weird, but if you're gonna, I think the only way to make it work is do a play on that then. Darkness. It's always, she only comes out in the darkness, not in the night, or like she can only travel at night. Do darkness. So it is when the darkness comes or falls over you, that's when you need to be scared. But no, it's just like, oh, that's the town's name. Why?
Yeah.
What?
They're a little loose with.
Yeah. But it's just things like that. And I know it's nitpicky, but it is kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, did you had all the stuff here? Well,
Yeah.
And it, again, the rewrites or the putting things from one timeline with another timeline to whatever. It's like, oh no, this is not, like, this is crazy. But even that, like I said, I would watch it again and I will watch it again. I mean, it is fun. I even would recommend it to people.
Yeah.
But I would be like, look, this is from 03.
Yes.
Understand. It's from 03.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what it is. But I think I do as well stand with you. And for me, on a scale from 1 to 10, tormentingly taken teeth, I'm also going to give Darkness Falls a 6 out of 10. I did still have a lot of fun. Like, there was a lot to laugh and kind of like, oh shit, and whatever. But I think you're right. The rest of that stuff is just like, I don't know if I can go over that.
Right.
Yeah, you guys covered it. You know what I mean? It is a little bit of a mess, but it's still in a comfort watch kind of way. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I feel about it. And a lot of that, like y'all said, probably comes from watching it so much when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was the coolest shit. And it's just so funny to revisit a film like that and be like, oh, is this the same one I was watching?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because I landed exactly where y'all did. So ding, ding, ding.
Uh-huh.
On a scale from 1 to 10, tormentingly taken teeth, I also gave Darkness Falls 6 out of 10 tormentingly taken teeth. What a ride.
Yeah.
Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate Darkness Falls, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Instagram at the Pod Mortem. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Instagram and Blue Sky at TravisMWH, at Blood and Smoke, and at JuggaloDaddy84. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll gain access to over 200 hours of bonus content, our monthly schedule, our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. And if you're looking for Pod Mortem or Stairhole Productions merch, follow the link in our episode notes. Stay tuned until after the music for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, if you ever feel enveloped by the darkness of your past, know that it's never too late to make your future a bright one. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned. We want to give a very special thank you to all of our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo! Yeah.
Excellent work. A special thank you to Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Tamez, Travis and Nisa Hunter, Miguel Myers ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Andy Teague, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Kimberly Kleindienst, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rizak, Molly Gerhardt, Armand Spasto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Barry, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Eden, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montalvo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newting, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M., Gary Horton, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Dave Burke, Emma Hagel-Kissinger, Valerie G., Emiliana, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer, Cookie, Esperanza J., Jason Kyle OKC, Joshua Rumley, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr, Sahara, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xxena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter, Eileen O, Marissa E, Henry F, Megan M, Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Erica Morin,
Tris Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A, Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E, Maggie H, Murder Stina, Kristen Marcy, Ori 81 Bariqua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez 63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J, Jay Rich, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Valerie Kay, Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit, Jenny May, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland, Raven, Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Priced Horror, Clemmy, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Benya, Danielle Wright, Tabitha Thomas, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, Jordan McCarthy, Christy Michelle Wilson, Rosalind Harnias, Emily Rance, Amy, Lisa and Kathy, Mike H.,
Kristen Sadler, Hannah, Sarah Jack, Casey L., Evelyn Knight, Paula Garcia, Ghastly Grandad, Megan and Alexandra Saldivar, Lisa Sykes, Sunny Jonas, Kelsey Niemeyer Cook, The Face Flowers, JG, Morgan Novello, Ashley, Alex M., Brandon C., Gordon Sutherland, Georgia Renland, Ashley Poe, Najee P., Seth Schaff, Diana Joe, Connor Gormley, Carrie Parker, Katie Face, Jane Pillsbury, Caitlin Asher, Mia Franz, Pooh Bear, Spicy Calderas, This is the Zodiac Speaking, Jason the Ghost, Moldy Tic Tac, Brian Ward, Tanner Rutgers, Gremlin Keeper 22, Sam Spade 666, Veronica, Kristen Rhodes, Daniel Laurent, Carmito, TVR, Trev Heron, A Very Sweepy Baby, Randy Tucker, Nicholas Rage, A Lazy Boy, Nicola Williams, Sadison Miles, Jasmine, Stu Corbett, Daniel Smith, Brick O, Pullout Lebowski, Robert Murdoch, Jaden Nicole, Jody Grody, Lost Fan 08, George L. Robertson, Mercedes X Bleeple, Joel Miller Apologist, Jaylene Perry, Cool Trainer Elijah, Mrs. Bloomingdale, Sierra Duncan, and Claire Cantwell. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We love and appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope you know that's the tooth.
Aww,
yeah.
back to teeth.
Yeah. Fucking finally. Until next time.